meeting of the Community Board, our final meeting of 2024. Welcome back to Bob. It is wonderful to have you back sitting around the table with us, and really pleased that you're able to be here today. We will start with some apologies. They're both for lateness due to work commitments. So Mary is hoping to dial in a bit later on, and Neil has just been called away to a work commitment and will be back online with us as soon as he can be. So I have a mover and a seconder for those apologies, please. Thank you. And then that takes us to our public forum for today. And we have three speakers at the public forum, starting with Lisa Lowry from the Cromwell Community Learning Centre. Welcome, Lisa. Oh, sorry, did we give you a trick chair? Would you like a different one? So we're a bit power play, isn't it? The room's sitting up high. It's terrible. Can you please help? Yes. Thank you so much for allowing us to come and speak at your community board meeting today. I've got a little bit of a handout because we had a little bit of a short notice to pull it together, and I couldn't get that. Once just give a little bit of a visual presentation. Yes, the Cromwell Community Learning Centre has been in consultation with the ODC over the last few years to try to source some land to be able to have a sister centre or extend our licence because of the process of regional education in our town. I think I'll sit here and talk too much about everything that some of you might already know. But what I thought I might do is just talk a little bit about why we're here today. So we're seeking financial support from the Cromwell Community Board and the CRDC in relation to an extension to the Cromwell Community Learning Centre to enable us to support the process that I'm sure does everyone know about it? I think I've spoken to everybody here about it in the past. So I'm Lisa Lowry, the Centre Manager of the Cromwell Learning Centre, and we've got Chairperson Gina and the back there, and Gary, who's a consultant and key person in our governance. I'm not too sure if you know much about the Cromwell Learning Centre, so I've got a few photos on the next 2 pages. I don't know if you know our reputation within the community or what we do offer, but we are a community-based, not-for-profit organisation, which means we don't make money from children's care and education in early childhood in this community. We have a constitution that states that we're even not an early childhood centre, the land and buildings that we own go to the CIDC. So that's sort of like an asset that is never going to leave our community. But we operate a functional business, you might say, you have to run a business model to be able to be effective, to be able to offer quality care and education for our youngest children. We're the oldest I thought I'm not going to talk too much because I want to take time for questions. I don't know if that's allocated in 5 minutes. So I'm going to be quick. We're the oldest early childhood centre in our community, still with lots of history. Established, we're starting to be established in the 50s when the mayor and many significant community members were involved at the beginning of what was meant to be a kindergarten, but got opened as a Cromwell Play Centre. And then a significant number of us that are still there changed it to the Cromwell Community Learning Centre as an outgroup Play Centre organisation. Yeah, I've already talked about there's no shareholders, there's no individuals that gain from this organisation, nor will they with what we're asking for today. It's solely to benefit the children and families of our community. It's a lot of hard work to get to a point where we are designing feasibilities and studies, things like that, so that we can support the children and families in our community to be able to get what they need. So on the last page, I've already said that we've approached the council several times over the last few years. But the latest one that has fallen into our lap just probably a few weeks ago, it's a project that's presenting what we're presenting to you today. It's an offer that we've had a little bit uncomfortable because the people that have asked us sort of wanted to be a little bit quiet, but now we can't. So here we are today. It's an offer from the Central Gateways Motel next door to purchase. You'll see in the picture, there's our piece of land here. that's quite large, and our buildings here and our playground down here. They've offered us this piece of land here, and in that little building there, there's 3 motel units, and there's what they call the cabana here, which could be a staff room, and that, with some renovations, could house 31 children under the age of 3. So it would be quite similar to an extension on our licence rather than starting a whole new centre. It's been offered to us for $1.1 million, which as an organisation we see as quite reasonable in the current market, and for the potential that it offers us in extending our current licence. The land size is about 150, and with some alterations, and what we had to do to meet the legislative requirements, it's a project cost of $1.472 million. As I've said before, with our constitution, it would remain, if it did remain the same, it had the potential to become an asset of the CODC should we ever not operate as an early childhood centre. If we were successful in gaining it, it would mean a lot to the families of Cromwell. That's why we've come here today. At the moment, we're looking for around $1 million. We have a significant amount that we can put towards it, and we have tentatively had Central Lakes Trust say they could do a portion, but that's not been confirmed, so we have already approached them about it. We are looking at other avenues of revenue, but we think one of the things we need to do is come to this forum and through the CODC because of the fact that it's sort of like an asset for the community. We have a timeline that requires us to take action in early 2025 due to the offer that we've been given. So we're requesting from the community board, it's a decision for the next few months, not necessarily the full financial amount, but the support in what could be possibly given to us in the near future. Namahi nui for your time today. We're more than happy to answer any questions that you have. And we've also got a feasibility study that's just in a draft form that I'll leave with you to think about. I might have reviewed around there. So it's based on I have it underneath the papers.
Oh, yes.
So it's only the draft one, so it can't be used for anything. It's almost completed, but we have done a lot of work on that. We won't give you guys more detail about all sorts of things that might be interesting. Is that 5 minutes?
So thank you, Lisa, for your presentation today. I know from first hand that Cromwell Early Learning Centre has an excellent reputation in the Cromwell community for the level of care and education we provide for our preschool children. But at the moment, am I right in saying you don't offer places for
children under the age of 2. So what the centre would do would be allow us to have young children as well, which is always the hardest to get.
Anyone else got some questions?
I just want to put the wax. We've got to parties, so like issues. Just really, if we really were formally to colour. Like this, but I understand what happens, and this is what happens when we find 3 people. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is, and I think we've talked about that around this time before, that's the real risk of a lack of PCE spaces is that people leave again because they're unable to
access that statement to Alexandra.
You say on here you'd be able to offer care and education for 31 children. Is that in addition to the?
Yes, we've at the moment got a licence of 41. So yeah, but that was with some quick drafting of the plan with the builder. That possibly could be a little bit more, but that was just an issue.
Staffing is obviously as difficult as catching too. You're pretty confident you can staff it, and obviously Stafford's got a good reputation. No, so you're comfortable.
Also really good reputation for
Don't get cash out of it. I'm not having much able to support this way.
You'll see this SWOT analysis in there, but that's not one of our various.
That's amazing, though.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's bloody hard to get kicked out.
I can see that, you know, from the price of your land to what you think is going to be a finished product, doesn't seem
Like a lot.
is it enough?
Yes. So that's, the paid builders quotes, it's all listed in the feasibility. It's all done in the-
Has that included asbestos and all the rest of those national things that throw up other
Yeah.
contingencies?
As
far as you know.
I've taken new plans, I tried to get it from the council with my plans on it. There's not a lot of renovation yet to do in it, it's comprehensive. But we can operate the first motel unit just as a solely room for babies without doing anything to it except putting that change area.
Few cages.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but no, there is place on.
And you've already had those conversations with first set of funders with Section Mates Trust?
Yeah.
And you've got other funders that you would be prepared to go to?
Yeah, it's almost used, but it's the UK in the future time, this thing, but without the support, I believe that's what I am. It's just not as easy.
Reality is that was not really in the council was made. Also, we would like to
Yeah.
support, and support like not just speak for anything. Yes. So I think personally would love to see that. I think any of us will be against development like this work.
No, I don't
what
think that any of us would stand as a leaving, but we also are aware that before any sort of decision making can be made, we actually need to know whether or not we've actually got funds that will be available to be able to use for a project like this or any project without, you know, and if we haven't, then what's the impact on rates?
And at this stage, $500,000 is equivalent to a 1% rate rise.
So put that in context, is very extent. So when anyone knows, I was thinking maybe if I said that was used for that's good environment, you know, face from community, that's the game.
And we do have some chunks planned, but developing those takes quite a long time as well. So it's just, yeah. So thank you so much for your presentation. You've given us a lot to talk about, think about, and is there anyone else with any further questions? Thank you.
Thanks for coming back and bring us.
Certainly will. And next we have Paula Clark from the Sports Club. Welcome, Paula. There's another one there. Oh yes, you can come.
So I'm quite back in the Cromwell Sports Club. I'm saying that we have been instead to come with an update on the Cromwell Sports Club rebuild. I really have not much to say. We're still waiting to see if the guys will come on board. Money that we asked them us. We've been saving through the last year. When was the last time we were here? Next. A while ago. Yes. So we're still in that sort of hovering period. Because we will be the same that the rest of our funders won't come on board into the community board.
I think we know that there's money in your what you're paying is rent comes
Yes.
back. I'm aware of that.
Yes, I had no surgery in between, so that goes, so it's about 68,000. Yep. So it's still up to 250,000 we asked. I know you'd like an update on the building costs. And then money is a small part, and we don't want to go and spend that money to get another update if we could just say no.
I think that what's happened to us is that it's become really complex, that obviously it's a large amount of money for us to grant. It sits outside of, you know, that would be the same with anybody coming looking for this sort of level of funding. It sits outside the grants policy. It's too much money for that. So it has to become part of a long-term planning type process. And of course, as a community board, we can make recommendations to that, but we are the group that puts the final thing together. But
Do you want any more information from us or?
Latest set of plans. I'm not sure of how well they've been circulated. Building design plans, what you're actually proposing.
sure we've got that.
They definitely have almost 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Been within something.
Sense.
Right.
We haven't changed it from that.
I suppose the other side of that was there's been the sports fields talk sort of happening and all of those things in the background as well that have sort of stalled progress on what
So
happens.
we participated in the next fields. But there wasn't heavy talk on buildings, structures as such. Was only talking about moving from backbeating subfields to the race fields.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, Paula, I haven't got yes, let's go for it, but I think that we are all aware that it's certainly within our long-term plan discussions as a board a couple of weeks ago. It is something, not go 6 weeks ago, whenever it was we last came together, that we certainly did talk again about where we've got to with that. And
So this winter, we had over 2 occasions that all fields were used, all chasing machines were used. And then we had to get porta-cons in. And the person that had to go on the porta-con was the women's team. So these are no windows, porta-cons, the doors have to be open to get the light on. So we had women changing those community board, council changing machines. I know it's not all the time, but it's addressed with a woman changing in.
yeah, and I suppose we've also got to make those decisions about which things are, if it's on council land, it's not our building, it's, and
So we're the same as the community centre. It's, if we were to go bust, it would be your building.
and so it's where our ability to invest in that building starts and finishes. Yes, so that's,
And we haven't asked over the 36 years now for much money. We've managed to do it all by ourselves. It's the first time we've come in and asked. And we're right there in the middle of town. We don't want to look shabby. We just want some help.
any questions for? Yes, thank you. And then we have Stephen talking about the Lake Dunstan East Side Trail Grant. Welcome, Stephen.
So, before I started, did you know if I sort of stuck up a moderate revenue dip, so I questioned on it.
So hopefully the man outside stops whatever he's doing. Yeah, it is, I agree. Yeah.
I had a document I prepared, page 7 copy of it, you to get that now.
That would be great. And then
That's
people
one,
can follow
page
it.
7 like that, yeah.
That's fine, yeah.
If you don't mind, I'd like to just, talking, you know, sort of makes me feel a bit more comfortable and, also, you know, not too much misquoted as what I say, okay, but I sort of
Yeah, absolutely.
So, the subject today is, I'd like to talk about the, community board decision to grant the Dunstan East Side Trail Trust, sum of money to perform a feasibility study and the concept trail design plans. Funding allocated from the CODC community grants budget in the 2023-24 year, as I understand it. So before getting to the subject of my presentation, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the community board members and district councils for all the good work they perform on ratepayer behalf. I believe that at a fundamental level, our community board provides governance that is in the best interest of our community. This is an exception to that I want to talk to today. So I asked to speak to you today on a matter which I hope is an isolated misstep in that process of local community governance. That matter is the Community Board's decision in May to make a significant grant to the Dunstan East Side Trail Trust. Before I get to the detail of that, I'm going to set out what I believe is some relevant background to this matter. On March 20, 2024, the then Mayor advised that the draft rates increase from the district's 2024-25 annual plan would average 24.29%. Mayor Cadigan accompanied that news with a view that the CODC, like every other council, was, and I have a direct quote, feeling the effects of a perfect storm of unavoidable cost escalations. Community reaction to that news was swift and condemning. Soon after, Mayor Cadigan offered some advice to a Roxburgh pensioner who had questioned him on how people would be able to afford that rates increase. And I made a quote here, that was her quote as to how the Mayor responded to the question. Cue significant community outrage, and that was my reading of it. Even a retired long-term council accountant, Trevor Goldie, described elected council officials as having lost touch with reality. Community board members around this table have reported to this forum the significant backlash in the community to the proposed rates increases. I took that from some minutes to previous community board meetings. Yet on 7th of May 2024, 7 weeks after the rates increase announcement, the Cromwell Community Board approved a grant of $36,533.20 to the Dunstan East Side Trail Trust. At the time of making that decision, I believe it would be correct to say that our community board members understood that a significant proportion of people in every ward of the district found both the proposed rates increase and Mayor Cadigan's funding suggestion totally unacceptable. My views on the Cromwell Community Board granting of that money to the Dunstan East Side Trail Trust are as follows. Firstly, in multiple contexts, a new section of cycle trail may be a very good idea, but I would contend that it is neither acceptable nor reasonable for Central Otago ratepayers to fund either the investigation or building of a new cycle trail. Currently, multiple commercial entities in both Cromwell and the wider district are gaining direct financial return from the existing trail network. From the moment the Cardrona Valley to Bannockburn Trail section is completed, commercial returns for businesses associated with trail cycling will likely increase exponentially. I'm not the only person to hold that view. If those multiple commercial entities gaining direct financial return from the trail network think that a loop around Lake Dunstan makes sense, then they should fund that trail extension. The rationale is quite simple. The commercial entities have used the existing trails like free feedstock to develop their businesses. Now they should spend their own money if they wish to enhance and grow their businesses. It is wrong at a fundamental level that ratepayers who may never have used a bicycle in their lives and will therefore never use this proposed cycle trail are funding its investigation through a portion of their rates demand. The fact that ordinary local ratepayer citizens who will not utilise one or more commercial services provided by the cycle trail providers will be able to use this new trail without paying for the privilege is quite reasonable, I view. Why is that? Because it is quite reasonable for commercial benefactors of this new trail to give something back to local citizens to compensate them a fraction for the inconveniences and annoyances that visitors to our area already bring and which will only intensify. Some examples include severe competition for parking spaces in Cromwell, cyclists, many new to the activity, riding around Cromwell displaying little road courtesy and ignoring traffic law, increased housing rents as more people buy local stock to turn into Airbnb accommodation, and a shortage of long-term rental accommodation. In both the last and the current district annual plans, community outcomes were established for district's ratepayers by Council's Community Economic and Strategic Development Team. Under the heading of Tourism, CODC ratepayers and residents are currently informed that Council's objective level of service is Council's tourism activity enhances the quality of life for Central Otago residents. I contend that based on the concerns I set out, the grant provided by the CCB to the Dunstan East Side Trail Trust will prevent council from achieving its own established objective level of service.
Thanks, Stephen. Has anyone got any questions for Stephen? You'd have Bob?
No, fine with that. No.
Yeah, the grants budget is set annually for us to be able to grant organisations that make an application to it. So it was certainly within the budget that was set for this year, which was set prior to the rates increase. So it was for the previous year's budgets that had been set. That's all I have to say on that matter in terms of how the budget was set.
I'm not objecting to the issue of grants, I'm objecting to what amounts type of aid to corporate welfare. That's what I believe it to be.
Any questions or comments?
Question. You can make a comment if you wish.
So, I mean, I guess you could question how much the community board and council needs to work towards economic development as a core purpose, right? But the cycle trails around here are a massive economic benefit to our district, and while there's commercial entities gaining from them at the moment, part of economic growth is a whole lot of new businesses, right? So for the few businesses that are doing well commercially out of the cycle tracks today, I'm not sure that they should be paying for new cycle tracks when it could be like the other 3/4 of them that don't even exist yet. They can't put into it. So what do you say about the commercial side of the economy funding these cycle tracks? I don't think that really exists. And if it, I don't know how you could get them to contribute retrospectively. Like it could be 20 years down the track where there's 20 businesses that are really humming in this district that don't exist at the moment. So that was the one that struck me out of your comments there.
I'm sure if there's a question there.
No, there's not a question. That was just a comment.
Okay, unless there's any further questions, thank you for your time. Takes us on to page 7 of your agenda and the confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting. Is there a mover and a seconder? You can just get to it. Sarah, thank you. Would you like to second them? All in favour? It was Wally. Then that takes us to page 14 of our agendas, which is the declarations of interest register and a reminder to members to step aside from decision making where there is a conflict or of interest. And then to page 17, to the Cromwell District's Promotion Group Accountability Report. So I think I have Ali and Caitlin and Carolyn.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Caitlin Knight. By day, I'm a property commercial lawyer at Export. By night and weekends, I'm the new chair of the Cromwell District's Promotions Group. We are a strong team of volunteer committee members across a whole range of professional community groups. And we also have 2 incredible contractors that keep the wheels moving and allow us to put on our brilliant activities and events. We hopefully just have a flow of pictures going on for context. So the funding that we're reporting back to you on today is the 23-24 funding, which covered our light up winter
fireworks and street party and cherry festival events last year, as well as the summer series and its last year in its current form, Busy Godsall's retirement, as well as our annual compendium that is a booklet that's stored in accommodation, retail and hospitality spots around in and around town. So obviously the clue in our name, our main ethos and purpose is promoting and attracting visitors to Cromwell. And these events, it's notoriously hard to attract with free events where people are coming from, but we attract as best as we can. And the sort of bonus, really warm, fuzzy byproduct is the community engagement and connection. And we also have, everyone here has been to one-on-one of the events and can see all the good vibes that it brings. Thank yous. There's too many to give in 5 minutes today. I have to thank our committee for preparing their time and effort. I'd also like to thank and acknowledge Carolyn Murray here for emotional support, who has 5 years as chair and has been, many of you will know, an advocate and incredible spokesperson for the promotions group, so she's a very big shoes for me to fill. But of course, a massive thank you to go to the community board. Without your funding and support, we wouldn't be able to put on these events year to year. The benefits that comes with that. So yeah, I guess that's a nutshell. I'm happy to speak to any questions. But
Welcome. Congratulations on being the new chairperson. Big shoes to fill. Carolyn's done an amazing job over the time that she's been in that role. So I'm sure she's there in the background still supporting you, which is very great. You've got to.
With a grant of excess of $10,000, it is a requirement that the group turns up and does a presentation. So thanks, Caitlin, for coming on and doing that. Personally, I do actually want to acknowledge that the group's continuing to work really hard in attracting new funding and sponsorships. So I think that's a really positive journey that they've been on and continue to be on. In the resolution, the $95,000 was for the delivery of, as Caitlin said, Light Up Winter, the street party and fireworks, cherry spitting and summer series of the ambassador program. However, the ambassador program didn't run. However, the board's funding was at a lower level than what was initially accepted. So funding is allowed them to manipulate how they could spend that funding. I think that's really about all I would have to say. Other than don't get confused with the Light Up Winter is the previous one, not the latest one. So
We're aware that we're always slightly
Yeah.
with the way that the grants fall and your reporting for, so that comes up frequently as a. Thank you. It's a very full and detailed report you've provided us with. I know that we've seen the value of the work that you do over many years for our community. And yes, we have probably asked some questions and done some pushing in terms of seeking other areas of funding, and we can see that you've been successful in some of those for your events, so that's been great. Anyone else got some questions or comments that they wish to add to that? So that takes us back to page 17 to the resolution, which is that the report be received. Do I have a move? Second. Thank you, Sarah and Bob. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried.
Aye.
Thank you. We're actually going to whip back to the public forum now because we have Peter Spencer from the RSA who somehow the request to speak has been
Thank you.
quite off board, but you're here and we're happy to hear you speak. So welcome, Pete.
Thank you very much. You might always stand.
No, not at all.
Good afternoon. My name is Peter Spenson and I'm the service member of the Cromwell RSA, which is a sub-branch of the Dunedin RSA. I'm on the Cromwell RSA Executive Committee and am here representing our President, Dennis Ryan. Unfortunately, Dennis is unable to attend and gives his apologies. First, I wish to thank Mr. Robertson, the Central Otago District Council Property and Facilities Manager, for his earlier responses to our President's inquiries regarding the Memorial Gardens planning and express our appreciation for this opportunity to address this matter. The reason we sought this opportunity to address you is, as you will know, the RSA role is to maintain, protect and honour the cenotaph on behalf of the fallen and the Cromwell community. We therefore have not just a keen interest in it, but a duty to ensure that the relocation of the cenotaph, the redevelopment of the Memorial Gardens is properly attended to and given the prominence required. Previously, during the planning phase of the new Memorial Hall and Event Centre, Cromwell RSA was invited to participate in the consultation process. We appreciated that opportunity to provide input, but we were regarded as a proper stakeholder in the development. At that time, there was a collaborative and congenial atmosphere with numerous innovative considerations across the table. At times, the RSA expressed objections to some aspects of the development. However, concessions need to be made, and we want the Memorial Gardens and cenotaph to be a place the whole community can be proud of and continue to revere. With this in mind, we have accepted some of the recent operations of the plans. However, we do now wish to seek an absolute assurance from the Council that our request for the following words of the famous poem, For the Fallen, and always quoted on Anzac Day services, at Anzac Day service, be inscribed in English on the memorial wall inscription panel. They shall not grow old. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, or the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. I repeat, these words of prayer are now enshrined as part of all Anzac Day services throughout New Zealand. The set of drawings provided to our President Dennis, there is a reference to possible interpretation panels, and the print on the drawings states example only, final design, content and locations agreed with RSA. We urgently seek written confirmation that the Council will continue to provide the Cromwell RSA with the opportunities for input and final approval as to the content on these panels. You will gather we are concerned with the limited contacts at Central Otago District Council that is now occurring, and President Dennis Wright has asked me to express his concerns in this regard. The RSA executive and members are feeling distinctly marginalised, particularly as recently several inquiries to the Council have gone unanswered. As everyone is aware, the cenotaph, guns and other plaques, etc., are now held in the storage bin awaiting the development of the Memorial Garden area following construction of the new complex. With this in mind, we would like to move on and re-establish a consultative working relationship with Council, its officers and design consultants. Thank you again for the opportunity to address you, and we look forward to meeting with you at the first opportunity.
Thanks, Pete, for your time and for your concerns that you've raised, or your request for the inscription on panel. I'm assuming it's a panel you're talking about for that inscription, or are you looking at and talking about?
It's the wall that's behind the memorial when it comes into the V. So the O will be in English, and at the same time the various campaigns that New Zealand has found themselves in since going back some many years will be represented on there. But Phil has the detail.
Yeah, and the O will be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
No problem. Thank you, Pete.
And just for the purposes of those that are online, I did declare an interest in that presentation as a member of the Cromwell RSA. I'll come back to the meeting now.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you for clarifying where we're at with that.
Yeah, actually, I shouldn't have too. The O will be in English.
Thank you. Okay, shall we get back on with our agenda then? So we have got page 55 and grant budget recommendations from Dylan. Welcome, Dylan.
So, good afternoon. This is a relatively paper, I suspect. So we've obviously workshopped with yourselves around the grant allocations going to the LTB. And as they are recommended here in the paper, so 50,000 to be allocated towards the grant budget and $106,210 to be allocated to the promotions and events budget. And I'll just add in there, and it's members are aware, we have been having chats, chats are going quite favourably with supercars, but we've got no further information pretty sure we've got this stage. Any questions?
Any questions, team?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
Does that include the museum funding, or is that over and above separate?
The museum funding is not included. That's its own line item.
Yep, thank you.
Sorry, Sas, yeah.
And just to add, we did hear from 2 public forum speakers this morning, this afternoon. If the board was of a mind to proceed with them, it would be really good to get your direction now. A couple of those are probably reaching the level of significance to have a conversation with our community, and timeframes are quite tight. So rather than calling a special meeting, as the board was wanting to consider those 2 requests from the public forum, and then if it's positive, we can put it into the budgets and put it into the consultation document as appropriate.
The second one is a bit of both, isn't it? Because it's from their top end.
Well, there's money in there,
Obviously more
costs, but they're asking for significantly more than that. So we have to make a decision about whether we would like that overspend to be consulted on. Is that what you're asking then?
Now, my memory and Dave might be able to help us out. We were
I think I've been resolution.
Okay.
And I'm just pushing Sandra.
Sarah will have it in a second. Yep.
But it says receives the report. Agrees to release the Cromwell Sports Club Fund Reserve 3151 in number 69333. Though I suspect that's increased
in the last 2 years.
Since this was from last year, 2023. Agrees to consider any additional contribution towards the upgrade of the Cromwell Sports Club facilities on Anderson Park as part of the 24-34 long-term planning process, and of course that's this process because it was extended, and agrees that the release of the sports fund reserve is subject to the sports club achieving its fundraising targets. So, and then the report attached had all the details that you were asking for. Well, I've just sent the link to the online version so you can find that within the
Cool.
Right, so there's the resolution already there that says that we will consider this in this next long-term plan process, so that should be there. In that consideration.
Memory, the amount was as Paula said today, 250,000.
Yeah. Is that in addition to the 69,000?
Yeah.
So, because they're brains out.
Is there how many, we need to here, is there how many ratable units?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you know, how many ratable units? You have one, but somewhere between 5 and 6, isn't it? Pretty sure. Yeah.
I do have that information if the hunter.
Like,
That's a good question.
That would be on top of everything else, another at 5,500 rateable units, which could be wrong. That's another, if it was a one-off rating payment, would be another $45 you'd be asking for every member of your community. At 250,000, and Paul might have a view as well. I do think that is reaching significance that it would need to be consulted in that.
Yes. I think that that's the advice, the feedback that we have given them in the past, that this would need to be consulted as that process that it would be.
6,072.
Oh, so this, maybe $40 support. This could be large as well, whichever is your impact, but it still is a decent grant level.
But that's specifically for Cromwell, right?
It is the problem.
Yeah.
Of course, a conversation you had with council, if the board was in line to support it today, as to whether or not, given district,isation, that was to be a district funded.
Thanks, that was the market factor club as well.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Then the question for council is whether every sports club's going to get the same treatment.
That's the challenge that has started coming, is that different organisations are coming to community boards and they all have great ideas and they've all put some money of their own towards it. You can say yes to everything, but there is a cost and it is significant. Well, I think that's what we need to take to the community and say, this is a proposal. Like that, is that what you want us to do? Oh. Yeah.
That's, I understand what the chair's just said is to ask.
Yeah.
Through the LGBT process.
Yeah, just, like I say, that's my vote. Send it out there.
So this does need, it's fine, because I'm doing a late paper for council on Friday. This does need council approval to go into consultation document, so that is the direction from the board today. So what is, it would be a CO to recommend to council that grant of $250,000 is provided to, sorry, I don't have the official name.
Cromwell Sports Club.
As part of the 25 to 34 long-term plan. I can make sure that's in
Is that year one?
Friday. What we'll do, Neil, is we will do what we pull. We'll do some funding options. That would be, because there's various ways we could fund it, whether it be a one-off payment year one, or it's spread out, debt funded. We have done it in the past.
Yep, gotcha.
Yeah. So we'll, we've got, hopefully we have a wee bit of that modelling on the 18th of December. I definitely, with the time frames we're working on now, probably won't have this one ready. But we'll have Paul, this team will work as hard as they can to provide some options there.
Okay.
So that's it.
We've already got a resolution that's sitting there that sort of essentially says that too, haven't we?
It said that you was the resolution.
He's considering the additional contribution.
Yeah, so you haven't actually
done the consideration.
you haven't recommended up to council for its inclusion, which is a step in now.
Sorry, this is, we've hijacked your report, thanks, Don. Brad, as usual. And I feel Rebecca has been working with the sports club people, you'll communicate that. Recommendation. Pending a vote around this table, really. Second one of those.
Yeah, the second one is, sorry, the Cromwell Early Learning Centre, and I'm much do they repeat?
I don't really know, I sort of get a scan of them. But they said that their total project is 1.4.
That's better.
Do we have a sense of quantum, because we do need quantum, that would need to be in the view of mind to support this one. We would need a quantum in the amount, the recommendation of council.
From what they said, they're looking for obviously a significant contribution, but they do have other funders to go to, and they do have some money, don't they?
Yeah, and their document, the feasibility study that hasn't got an amount that they're requesting, but it does have an amount that they are.
Got 1.4 total project cost, doesn't it?
It's got total project cost, and it's got salary contribution to funding of $200,000 plus insurance contingency fund of operation reserves of $80,000.
Okay. It's not bad, honestly, for the start.
Yeah, so they are short with one, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah. Part of the request was that it's a bit like the from sports club request, isn't it? That with the support of council, they can then apply for other funders.
So way forward today, given we don't know the amount, if the board wanted this to go to council next Friday, is we could put a holding amount in there. We could say up to 1.1 million, and then we get that number refined. And Paul can help me out here, what we don't want to be doing in January is adding additional items in. If council, when they see the consultation, formally see the consultation document in January and go, actually, this is too much, we're not going to formally consult on these 3 items. It becomes more challenging with adding items in. Paul, would that be a way to resolve where we are today? Put a holding amount of up to 1.1, hoping that it's going to be way less than that. Rebecca, have you got a view?
That seems the logical way to do it, not, if it comes in under, which we're expecting, then that's great. But you've got to always go high if you come back down. So, I think that the view that you've got there, Saskia, is the one you'd go on.
I was only just going, that they indicated that they'd spoken to Central Lakes Trust. I suspect they could also well speak to Togo Community Trust. And so those 2 funders, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Togo Community Trust, but if they're in the picture, then they would contribute towards that total price. And so I think you're being greedy by putting it at 1.1, it's likely to be
Actually, significantly lower.
It's just what you go offer.
Is that something that's like a lotteries or any other significant funding opportunities, or are we realistically looking at just a 3-way? Us OCT and COT, is that it really? That's going to be
So the big thing,
so
yeah,
how many are you looking at?
there's probably some other smaller funders they'll use for equipment and fit out.
Yeah, and some included in that, I imagine. So realistically, we're probably looking at a third of their bill at best if the others come to battle. Would that be?
Yeah.
As a board, we could consider ourselves what set of circumstances would lead us to grant $1.1 million, and it would be pretty exceptional circumstances. So we could start at a more realistic. I mean, putting 1.1 in there when is it really going to happen?
Well, that is the other option for the board, that you could say an amount that you're prepared to, like say it could be 250 or whatever number that is, and that is your contribution.
for starting.
I suppose what we're being cautioned against is if our starting point is at 250 and then it goes to council and they say, no, we're only prepared to.
It's only to get into a long-term plan consultation, eh?
Yeah.
Do we get to see the board, does the board get to see the LTP consultation before council signs off on it? So why I'm asking is that, I mean, do we see the numbers and see what it does? Or is this our last chance?
Now I'm just,
for council?
I'm looking at our next meeting is, and I don't think we'd meet again for February. Yeah, and this will go up on the 29th of January council meeting now.
There's still a scope though for maybe through the public forum or something, or some way for the board then to feed into that when it sees it and goes, oh, don't like the implications of that.
Yeah.
So council can consider that, I guess. So that's not a bad outcome. So why I'm saying that is that probably a chance we can do what we not do what we like, but be overly optimistic potentially here, but then there's still a chance that we can have some input, say, oh no, that's not what we're thinking at all. That's not good. We don't want to do that, and we can say that it shouldn't carry forward.
Yep, we could do that through the public forum with the chair speaking, or if you go away from this meeting and think, oh, this isn't sitting right, we can convene a special meeting of the board early in the new year. Obviously, that won't be ideal with the other plans either, but that would be the other way to manage it, because we really need to hear from the early learning centre what number we're playing with here.
Yeah. And especially if you do that, if it's a one-off meeting for one item, has to be extraordinary. It can be a Teams one. It can be, reasonably simple and focused.
Yeah, we could do it under the new legislation. We can organise a Teams meeting and give us one item. It's need to be in person. Mm-hmm.
Is that the only option for the acquisition of the building?
It's a little bit of knowledge is that the rough purchase price, they have some of their reserves.
Yeah.
Roughly. And then so the rest of it is, I guess the runway left trying to get through various grants and things like that. So just to get the board their guidance there. Yeah.
Just ask Anna, or if someone has. They've got a timeline that requires action early in 2025, and we would not be anywhere near action in early 2025. Is this actually going to align with what they need for this offer? Yeah. Is my concern, because we wouldn't be signing off for probably until June, maybe mid-year at best. I don't know if they've got a fellow willing to wait that long, and they may well have, but it's quite a way off what they're asking.
Don't know whether they've got a long possession date or anything like that. We don't know.
No, all I'm saying is we have a timeline that require action early in 2025 due to the offer requirements.
And that purchase price, I would imagine that would be very limited, wouldn't it?
It's another thing to clarify that action could be a sale and purchase agreement with a 12-month settlement date for all we know.
Quite a bit.
That's information you have to get off the end of the day.
They've got some reserves for deposit down. So there's a lot of ways that this can still progress. But yeah, that realism about we needing council or public funds becomes available is worth more.
What I could do for the board in this paper, I'm going to measure it up between now and Friday, is I could put a line in there that essentially explains that this item was just brought to the meeting of the state, and that the board are going to work on refining this number and the timing requirements, and then at least it will, that way at least we'll have a holding item in there that could well, what is found out in January, that might come out of the consultation document, but you're best now to get it in, to take it out, than try and add it in. Yeah.
So the figure is what we're looking at going.
It is, yeah.
This next long-term plan finishes mid-2027, is that right?
Yes.
So it will take us up to the first 30th of June 2027 and the next long-term plan 2027, 2037.
So there's an overlap there with the opening of the hall, which we're going to discuss the operating model in due course, but now's the time to talk about how any funding is going to happen with things related to the hall opening as well. And it sounds like we need to sort that out in the next 5 minutes.
I really listen to you and your wishful thinking.
I mean, the whole budget will be put into the LTP.
Yeah.
For the
That
next
would
month.
be, yeah.
As a way forward to suggest that a grant of X, maybe 550,000, be included for, and I think potential, like, I just think you need to, I think it should be subject to further information.
Yeah,
And I think in further information can include other funders' requirements and time, and if the time frame is going to work. So it's in as a whole, but there's two big pieces of information that you need, whether the 500K, what is the figure?
Yeah.
And secondly, is the timing of not, you can't pay anything before 1 July. Is that going to work for?
Okay, so how do we word that in recommendation?
That a potential grant of up to $500,000 is included for the Cromwell Early Learning Centre, subject to further information. Learning Centre, subject to further information around timeframes and amounts. Is that costs?
Costs.
And costs.
No, but funding options and what else?
That's what the teacher very. Be considered as part.
And in light of that, and just listening to the conversation, I do think it's better to convene a Teams meeting in January, because I imagine, and the councillors around the table speak to this, is council probably would want to know where the CCB landed with that further information. Do you want it in or out? Do you want to find 500,000? There will still be time to do, because we can get all the holding content ready and we can just change that number. But we will need to get the agenda out on the 22nd of January. So ideally the board would need to convene at the latest the week of the 3rd of January. And would need to have got this information from the Cromwell Learning Centre to inform that meeting.
So we can do it Teams, it's not we can do that. Yeah.
What date did you say? I'm sorry.
We begin
The week begins 13th of January.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, at least this will get it holding and then council can make a further decision. Yeah.
And Dylan, it looks like what you've brought us is completely reasonable.
What's the promotions grant figure so specific?
That's, I'm presuming that relates back to, it's been at a number, it's just getting a CPI every time.
Yeah.
Which will happen for 50,000 from here on out as well.
Yes, so you get really specific amounts of money.
Yeah, all at once.
Okay, so those recommendations that aren't on page in your agenda but are on the screen are that Cromwell Community Board receives the report and accepts the level of significance. B, recommends to council a total of $50,000 through the LTP budget process for community grants in 25-26, 106,210 for promotions and events through the LTP budget process for 25-26. Recommend to council that a grant of $250,000 is included to the Cromwell Sports Club as part of the draft 25-34 long-term plan. Recommend to council that a potential grant of up to $500,000 is included for Cromwell Early Learning Centre subject to further information around timeframes and funding options, be considered as part of the draft 25-34 long-term plan.
Sorry, Madam Chair, just one final thing.
Yes.
From the conversation, is that from Cromwell Board, or you want to ask councillors that it be district funded?
For which of the both?
I'd be going for one of each there.
Can we just pick and choose what's what to be district and board based now? I mean, how's this work?
Well, the real challenge that will come, if you guys today say, we'll ask this from our Cromwell Ward ratepayers, that might be an easier sell than saying, hey, council, we haven't talked to you about any of this to the last minute. Can you add another 1% on our rates to fund these in the Cromwell? Your Cromwell councillors are going to do some pretty neat work.
I think they're quite different to me. In my mind, those two projects are quite different on where the cost should lie. Personally, I would see one go district for sports if we're going to do that overall. That's the whole point of digitalisation. I think that's continuity. The CLC application, I think, needs to be targeted. You know, it's town specific, and as a Cromwell ratepayer, I'd be happy to see that rate as an extra for that local economic benefit. I don't think you can sell that as a district thing.
At remember, you still have the delegation around grants. That's why I'm asking the question as to how you like the conversation to go.
Yeah, and I think CLC is quite uniquely placed because they are a community centre, not a commercial operation. So they're a different kettle of fish to our commercial providers and ECU. Yes, should it fall out the case back to council?
Can anyone clarify on that then, the land ownership of the current number 53 Monahan? Does that mean that it's like a similar model to the sports club, that we own the land and the building is theirs?
We had divested it to them a couple of years ago. Is that right?
53, Monahan?
Yeah, that's where the current building is, but obviously they're owners and
The rate, but it says they are.
Yeah, that we sold it to them. Very helpfully.
that's something, if we're looking at purchasing land and then purchasing. It's a bit bigger than just a simple, here's some money, go and buy a motel and turn it into a kiddies zone.
Get back to the recommendations.
Oof. So decide, yeah, whether you want to say, ask that councillors to consider those for D&E for district funding. Quite clearly in C, given the nature of what they're called, to be board funded, the D&E.
So what would that need to say, that one, if we're making it as part of?
So B, you would say award grant, which for people, or a district grant. Yeah. Well, the words would be ward or district, is that you get. Okay. Yeah, just in front of a grant.
I'd like to put that in there.
On D, but I don't think it fits with the.
Yeah. As a ward for E though, do we need to put the word ward in there for E? Yeah. No. Yeah. I think they're appropriate.
So that with the changes to the wording for D, to recommend to council that a district grant of $250,000 is included to the Cromwell Sports Club as part of the draft 25-34 long-term plan. And E, to recommend to council that a potential award grant of up to $500,000 is included for Cromwell Learning Centre, subject to further information around timeframes and funding options to be considered as part of the draft 25-34 long-term plan. We at the point we will put a motion in a seconder. Thank you, Sarah. 20 seconder. Thank you, Bob. All in favour?
Before you do the vote, I can't vote on C and D because I wasn't present for those presentations, so I only vote for A and B. Is that right?
Is that right? That's people?
Yes. Right? Yeah. So correct that Neil cannot vote
I
for
because he wasn't here for public forum.
With the
Yeah.
items.
I could vote.
That's his decision.
That's your decision.
Oh, yeah, I can't vote on something I didn't hear for. I don't know exactly what they're wanting the money for, so I'm totally ill-informed, so I can't vote on that.
All right, yeah, I'll make.
Well, that makes no sense. So we've got a mover. It was Sarah. Have we got a seconder?
You did.
It was Bob. Of the other people in the room, all in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone against? Carried. Thanks, Neil. Thank you, Dylan. Sorry, we hijacked it.
I doesn't know.
Right, Wayne, welcome. Update us on the register of delegations. It is on page 57.
Afternoon, everyone. Take the paper as read. We have really currently up to with the register of delegations is we've been around all of the community boards to get their views and also some. And then I remember you asked last time for it to come around again before the 18th, just to do a check-in where we are, and that check-in is appendix 2. So that's basically where we've ended up in appendix 2. And so yeah, just checking in to see whether there's anything in particular still think is missing or
Point 7 on the power to act says, where do we start?
Advise for the acquisition and disposal of council property within the community board's jurisdiction,
Yeah.
subject to any property transactions being formally approved by the council.
I'm not a scholar, but I don't know if jurisdiction's the right context there. I think ward bound.
wars?
Yeah, council property within the community board's ward boundaries.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because jurisdiction's not actually spatial.
Because we haven't got one.
Yeah.
You're giving us one through the delegation.
Well, I don't think I actually changed it, so you might have always had a jurisdiction.
We might have, but I don't think we do have now. But
No, I don't think we do.
Jurisdiction is more like collectively the power to act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll make that change.
And I've got one that's been there a long time too, but I think needs to be fixed.
Yep.
We say that the community board reporting to council can't, doesn't, never has, never will. Used to say that as well. I just think that it actually doesn't report to anybody. It's a standalone institution.
Yes, it is. Okay. Where is that?
Right at the top of the page under community boards, it says reporting to council. No, and it did in the old one too.
Okay.
nice spotting there. So you don't just also, we did say he's pedantic on the semantics.
And point 12 on limitations on authority is the words not felt to be desirable, which sound pretty loose and open.
Can I question the numbering?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I was about to.
Being a pedant.
Oh, no, yeah, no, I'll fix that up.
Oh, good. Yeah, sorry. Point 12.
Once I put it in the actual document, it will change. Something might change again. So yeah, I see 9 to 11. So.
Okay.
So the one.
Decisions are always. It's not felt to be desirable. That's a wordy little.
The first half of that sounds completely above board.
Has a responsibility to ensure that its policies, actions and decisions are always within the overall strategic plans, annual and long-term plans, policy guidelines and priority programs adopted. So that's, yeah.
That's fair enough.
Whenever this is either not possible or in the circumstances of the case not felt to be desirable, that's the little bit that you're, yeah, The community board's decision will be by way of recommendation to the council.
We don't like it.
Whenever this is not possible, or
So you could just cut it off right there. And so
Yeah, it's not
whenever this is not possible, the community board's decision will be by the way.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, something like that. Okay.
yeah, it really be going for anything that's not actually desirable within this decision.
No, I can't think of a situation where you would say something is desirable, but it's saying that it's, you know, something might come up with that would be useful, but.
There's not actually many words here, so they will have to mean something.
Yes. Yes, Tony? Yeah. As we said, you spoke to us the first time, you on the right, Phil's on the right track. But
Yeah. Oh, so
it's just, it's pedantic semantics that you've got from the Cromwell Community Board this time. Okay.
well, I think it'll make it for this document, so.
If it's helpful, I think just the way the subheadings work, you've got two of them, the Powder Act, the objectives, the Powder Act are in block capitals, and then you drop down and you restart the numbering each one, and then you've got limitations on authority, and it's the numbers continue. Just something not logical about that sequencing or the formatting.
I'll fix it.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah, and otherwise we'll be looking at it every time it's adopted over every election.
If it's still there when I on the 18th, you can give me a slap.
Yes, and you sit so happy.
I won't need to. You'll sort it, Wayne, I'm sure.
All right, our only actual recommendation on this paper is that we've received the report. Do we need to make note that we've requested some changes in here, or it's just no?
No,
It's on. Yeah, thank you. A mover and a seconder, please.
Aye.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Share it about. Hey, there was a hand up here, a nod there, and there was an eye on the screen. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Great. It's good that you're online now, Neil, so we've got naming of things to do next time. That is one of your.
I'll move the recommendation.
Page 64.
Let's be learning this. Let's go. Let's be doing it.
There's not my name anywhere near it.
Good day, everyone. So, the names given to our open spaces are important. They connect us to the land and the environment around us. So today we're going to ask you to consider the naming of a reserve in Bannockburn. Before I dive into it, the recommendation is to name the reserve Campbell Lane as supported by the board in August. This matter has previously been on the board's agenda, starting when a member of the public approached council with a suggestion to name the walking track, which had never been formally named. It was proposed to name the space after to commemorate Flight Lieutenant Colin Campbell, who was lost in a raid over France during World War II. He attended a school in Bannockburn and he walked near the track with his school friend James Lynn, who also died in the war. At the board's previous meeting, we weren't able to name the reserve there and then, as there was the open spaces naming policy, which came into effect in January this year. So we went away and followed the process. We've consulted with the community, we've consulted with adjacent neighbours, Okaha. We've also made a special effort to consult with the Ministry of Education, who named the old schoolhouse there. We received 2 submissions from the community, both were in support. We've also looked through the process as we've consulted with different groups, we've been told that everyone is in support. So we've also assessed the name against policy, and we've sort of demonstrated that it's unique and that the suffix is appropriate. We've looked at the considerations and that's all okay. So, yeah, we've come to the conclusion that Campbell Land is a suitable name, and I just want to sort of thank everyone for being patient as we've gone through this process and followed the policy, but I think we've come out with a really good outcome.
That's great. Let's get the recommendation done fast before the change. That's why. Have I got a mover?
Aye.
Yeah. And a seconder?
Yeah.
Thank you. All in favour? Aye.
Aye.
But the next time's easier.
Oh, aha, naming things, never. Thanks, team. Righty ho. Then we go to page 76 and the Cromwell Aerodrome helipad. Welcome.
So I've read the paper to you, it's for information in regards to the Cromwell Lions Club looking to provide an actual concrete helipad at the aerodrome here in Cromwell. Make things a lot easier for being able to transport those fortunate people that are needing to get airlifted to hospital from the area. We currently, you'll be aware, have the fuel pumps and things installed at the roadside. And this will be a good addition, certainly, that the helicopters landing can refuel. They're not having to kind of jump across the airport to get to the refueling before they can go back, take people in a gurney and bump across the roof surface and then get them into the helicopter to go. So it's not costing council any money. They're getting funding from elsewhere. They're less, but it's something they've just got to get for lights. And they're approaching a community trust for that.
Right. Thank you. So anyone got any questions over that? That's really great that that's been able to go ahead. And the recommendation that the report we received is on page 76. Thank you, Cheryl. Thanks, Sarah. All in favour? Carriage. Before. Managing unreasonable payment conduct. What the hands? That's
Probably named it different, but any of us been given the test.
It's Friday, after I'm here, Mary Committee. If you have customer resolutions today, you can straight to slide 2. So the outcome of today is to inform you of this work that will go up to council early next year, introduce some key terms, and also to get any feedback from yourselves before we do present it as formal paper. The terms are unreasonable complainant conduct, customer resolutions, and managed customers. Let's jump straight to slide 3. But before we get into that, we do have a complaints policy that will be in place before this work, and that is a 3-step complaints process. It really just articulates what we do. Most complaints are resolved face-to-face with frontline staff. There's an escalation to a manager, and then there's a third escalation if that doesn't work. And if we move along to slide 4, this is me copying out the Kapiti Council complaints model that they had some Otago PowerPoint version. But as you can see, it's got a really strong foundation underneath it of improving our system to reduce the number of complaints. And then each of these arrows in width represents the number of people or complaints we think will sit in there. So as you can see, as we step up those levels, we expect it to reduce. And the Ombudsman is there for any public sector oversight at any time. And then to the left, getting smaller and smaller, we have specialised complaints processes, and those are those that sit across multiple departments and just need their own process. And then that really small one on the very left is the bit I'm here to talk to you about today, and that's in complaints or interactions with council where the behaviour of the person making the complaint is so unreasonable as to be causing an issue for either council, its staff, or its ability to fairly use its resources. Now, it's defined on the next slide. So this definition has come straight from the Ombudsman, and that's any conduct by a person that because of its nature or frequency raises substantial health, safety, resource or equity issues for council. The next slide, I've put just a bunch of negative impacts of unreasonable conduct, on slide 6, that represent, yeah, it's very hard to read. I've seen this around to you, but basically what it represents is that there is a cost of not having it in place as well. There's all sorts of implications. So for the organisations, for staff, and for the complainant themselves. On the next slide, we've got what unreasonable conduct includes, and that's unreasonable persistence, unreasonable demands, unreasonable lack of cooperation, unreasonable arguments, and unreasonable behaviours. And each of those is defined with examples within the policy itself. The policy is the sample policy from the Ombudsman, and I will send this around to you if you like this one. And essentially what this piece of work does is it takes that behaviour and it responds specifically to that behaviour. So the next slide is showing you the objectives that underpin it, but they really come down to being equitable and fair, keeping a focus on health and safety, and managing expectations from the complainant right at the outset. What I do need to emphasise, we can jump all the way to slide 10, the managing UCC policy, is that this policy can never be used punitively. The point and the goal of this policy is to manage the behaviour in a way that leaves other channels of communication open. So if we have someone who's repeatedly coming to us with more and more arguments on one issue, we can say, we won't discuss this anymore, correspondence on this issue will be filed away, or assign a particular person to have that conversation. But if that same customer then has their sewer overflow, they can still contact us to get that addressed. Next slide. Yeah, this is really to give you some comfort in the steps that we have in place there. That's including having all of our staff aware of those warning signs and identifying it early on. And we also need to provide warnings to the customer and give the customer an opportunity to address that behaviour, and really regular reviews as well to make sure that there's an avenue to remove the restriction should the behaviour improve. Just finally on that, on the next slide, is that these customers are likely to impact you as well as staff. So we just wanted to make sure you're aware that we do have a place for you all should that happen. You can contact Peter, Louise Black, who's on the screen, and of course we've got Namir there as well. And we can extend the employee assistance program to elected members should you ever need. So just taking the opportunity to make sure you're aware that that's the case. And then finally, on our final slide here, is the communication level of understanding. So as you can see, we're meeting with you all today to make sure you're aware of it before it's in place, that you have this opportunity to feed in on any changes to make, and then we'll be continuing to roll it out across the rest of the organisation before we look to get it approved by the end of the first quarter next year. And that's it. So back to you.
Thank you. And of course, it's our customer-facing staff who find themselves most at risk, don't they, in these situations? Yeah. Righty-ho, any questions?
Good to be so robust.
Yeah, it seems really comprehensive approach. So, yeah, thank you for that. So the recommendation is on page 80 that the report be received. Yeah, moving and seconded. Rolling. Thank you, Cheryl. All in favour?
Aye.
This takes us to page 112 and an update on the fast track approvals bill.
Good afternoon. So I'll just kick it off.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's been a number of conversations in the community and around the table as well about the line and the fast track and what's that look like. And you'll recall the last community board meeting, we had a couple of speakers were raising concerns and what does that picture look like. And so from that, hence the report today is Anne will go through in a bit more detail for you all, just to explain what does that look like in the bill at the moment. It is still a bill, but it's unlikely to change drastically and should become legislation, which is obviously what we believe is going to take place. So to that point, I'll hand over to you.
Hi, Anne.
Thank you. I'll just a bit of an overview. Obviously, you've got the report there. So the bill was introduced in March of this year, attracted 27,000 submissions, so it's a fairly significant response from the community. What we've ended up with is something that is quite different. So they have listened to a lot of a lot of the submissions that was received. So there is quite a difference. So what we've put together today is based on what we know so far. It's had its second reading in November, and it's working its way through the final stages. The intention was for it to be gazetted prior to Christmas. We're not sure if that's still going to happen, given that currently we've only got 2 projects in our area that we're aware of at the moment. So we've got two projects, but we've only got 2 lines on what each of those is, and it's supposed to be out on the 28th of November with a bit more detail about the scale of some of these things and what exactly is happening. And it's been pushed back to the 20th of December. So that means that when the ministers have the opportunity, it's not clear whether or not they're actually going to have access to the full applications. It appears possibly not based on reporting around us. So we don't have a lot of information about those projects specifically, but I can talk a little bit about the process as outlined in the bill currently. So the purpose, the Fast Track Approvals Bill is to facilitate infrastructure and development projects with significant regional or national benefits. That hasn't really changed, that's pretty much the same. So it proposes a one-stop shop for large-scale projects with a panel made up of, well, there's a panel convened in which the minister, who listens, which is the Minister for Infrastructure, so that will be the Honourable Shane Jones at the moment. So he appoints a High Court judge or an Environment Court judge who is the panel convener. So for all of the panels, for all 149 projects they've got at the moment that have made it onto the list across the country, the panel convener will appoint the panels for each of those. So members of the panel have to have certain skill set. We do get to councils, territorial authorities do get to appoint a person to that, and that'll be a matter for that once we're asked, council will make that call who that person, who will be most appropriate, but it would have to be somebody with a skill set. So in addition, we've got 2 which most people are aware of. The second one we weren't aware of initially, based on the fact that there was only 2 lines in it. But obviously there's the Bendigo Ophir mining project, so we're aware of that one. And remarkable ski area upgrading Durham's expansion. That was one that we weren't sure of, and we found out through Queenstown. We had a discussion with the proponents of that. So that's how we found out that that's actually tipping over the boundary into Central Otago. So, but we don't have much more than a couple of lines at the moment. So we're waiting to see what the impact of that might be. Local authorities do get the opportunity to comment prior to the lodgement of the substantive consent. So at the moment, it's just the proposal that's been put forward to the minister to decide, or the panel and the ministers to decide whether or not we go on the list. This is the actual application under the various pieces of legislation, which will be RMA and anything else that they need is a whole bunch that they can apply for. So prior to the lodging of the substantive application, they're required to consult with local authorities. We don't know how long that will be or what the parameters around that will be, but we will have that opportunity prior to the lodgement to raise any issue. We will also, local authorities also get an opportunity to comment on the application once it's in. Very, very tight 20-day turnaround. There's the indications have been that there will be no extensions on that, so we'll have to use that time really wisely. And the limit, that's quite limited in terms of who can and can't be involved with it. The landowners on which the project is taking place and the adjoining property owners. And that's pretty much it, unless the panel decides to invite written comments from somebody else. So it is quite limited. So in terms of who might get the opportunity to comment, there's no right of appeal. There is no right of appeal in terms of the actual consent itself. You can appeal to the High Court on courts of law and so that appeal process is gone. The panel, once the comments have been received, the applicant themselves, again, only gets 5 days to turn around any comments that they have. So once all the comments come in, they're on pretty tight time frames as well. They can ask for further information, so there's opportunities along the way to ask for further information. And in terms of the decision making, there's a hierarchy. You see on page 3 of my report that there's sort of 1 to 5. That's the literal hierarchy of considerations with the purpose of the fast track bill becoming the RMA and anything else. And district plan sits down at 1 to 5. So there won't be a major consideration when we're looking at these projects when the decisions being made. So, and again, the decision is 25 working days to make the decision. Cost recovery, it looks like we are going to be able to recover some costs in terms of if we have to do anything in terms of responding to the process. And that's probably about it at the moment. I think while we've only got 2 projects at the moment, this is for the first tranche. There's a pathway being created for additional ones, and we may well find that there are some additional ones coming through. We can think of a couple that possibly will come back through that process as well. So this is going to be an ongoing thing. The governance here.
So I guess the messaging for this is there's minimal opportunity and no time.
Yeah.
Is the message.
We need to be smart with who we put on the panel and what we focus on.
When they come in, we'll put this report onto council as well, just for council obviously awareness, because again, speculation and applications being made late February, etc. So we thought time's of the essence to let you know what the picture actually looks like. And it's challenging, and when Anne and I and Fiona, the planning manager, have had conversations about this, is we really just need to focus in on what are our key elements when we have those conversations, because we can't do a scattergun, we'll get nowhere.
20 days is not. So who knows how the documents that might get dropped at you could be enormous too, couldn't they? It could take 20 days to read them.
I can tell you, tell you that a recent application that you will be familiar with, that the hearing panel heard with an independent chair as well. There was over 3,000 documents, 3,000 pages to read. That's for one margin.
What do you consider the nature of the local government responses? Is it, there's obviously no time for meaningful public consultation. No, so it's basically just the council staff forming some sort of working group to understand it and respond as fast as they can, right?
That's absolutely it. And that's what we did previously, is to consolidate, okay, what are the key themes that we need to focus on, and try and have the conversation with council as quickly as possible, say, are we on the right track? Is there anything like that is jumping out to say, heck no, we don't want that, or yes, you're on the right track, so to speak. Because we have a very limited time in which to turn this around, and when these things happen, and thankfully it drops everything to focus on when we have those limited opportunities to do this piece of work.
And what's your experience or musings on how this has worked out in the past? Did council actually have much effect?
Yeah, actually it was an interesting process. We got more out of the second one than we did out of the first one. And I think we had a different approach to it. We focused in on what was important in terms of the infrastructure we were getting, realising that there was it was probably going to get consent, and so we shifted our focus, and rather than saying we're not happy about it or whatever, we focused in on what's important in terms of roading infrastructure through waters, all of that sort of stuff. So that's where we focused, and we actually did make some gains around that. It's the second stage of Willing Tree. So I think, I think the difference with this one is that this is slightly different to the COVID fast track. We do get an opportunity prior to lodgement of the substantive. I don't think that was a requirement on the last one. So the fast track was not, the COVID one was not fast.
I just don't know what that length of time is though.
We don't know.
Well, do we get a month? Do we get a week? Do we get a day? We don't know what that looks like.
And with the remarkable schedule, depending on what it looks like, if it is literally just tipping over the boundary, that's something we would probably look to work with Queenstown because most of it will definitely still be in there.
I think the key thing here with the timeframes and them being so tight or unknown is to make sure that we've somehow got to have our connections out to the community that are going to be impacted upon this, that will want and expect that council will be advocating in some way, shape or form for them. You know, it's going to be hard to do. We've got a heads up on 2 of them. The only good thing is when new ones come on under the Schedule 2 that'll come out, assuming it goes to law. I guess we'll find out by then what that notice period that we'll get is and how long we get. But it just means that we might have to, you know, more hands dropping things to actually provide that community connection to make sure that we can represent and advocate for them as appropriate, because that's certainly what the community expects from us.
I think there's an opportunity once we get a bit more detail on the 20th of December when it comes out, which I think is after the ministers get comment back on it. But we'll at least have a bit of an idea about what we're looking at, so we can actually start thinking of that.
Maybe this at Christmas.
Yeah, well,
that's what you do it, isn't it?
That's when the 3 years and our before we have as well.
Do we also the holidays? Those holidays for you.
It's terrible.
Do we have the depth and breadth of experience to do this justice? Are we looking outside it? Yeah, I know we've got in-house counsel now. Good idea, but
no,
but anything that does come up, that's, do we have?
Well, that is a challenge because we have a very small staff.
Yeah.
And I could imagine that the information that will be released will fill this table.
Yeah.
In terms of, so I think we're going to have to be pretty selective on the areas that we need to focus on, and you know, taking the assumption and the second approach to re-entry and the assumption of the fast-track process. It may be our case around the conditions we want to impose, the mitigations we want to impose.
Oh, sorry, apologies. We do also, but it's in here, we mentioned that we do also get a chance of the conditions, especially. And that's where we've been probably that's going to be similar our communities.
Bonds and that sort of stuff.
So in terms of that would be the sort of an operational staff internal discussions. Yeah.
So we don't know until we
You don't know what,
you know, because we're making a lot of assumptions, and it might be until we actually get it and go, hey, we can deal with this bit.
Yeah.
This bit, we've only got 20 minutes.
And that time is particularly lining up the appropriate people that might be able to advise us better. Like, do we have an environmental lawyer that knows the stuff that we've got to align to?
Yeah.
Is it something we should be looking at now? We use MacTodd and MacTodd are local, and they probably go, is that right though? Is my question. You know, the best of the world, everybody does the best job they can, but these are big, significant projects. We need to make sure that the people that are advising us or that we're using are of that same scope.
And we can certainly reflect the needs of the community, but our position might not match the needs of the community.
Not necessarily yet, but it's a big deal for a small entity like ourselves. I think that's the that's the crux of it, isn't it?
There could be 30 different key elements in one application that we're looking at that we're just not going to be able to hit all those points, and we may need to distill that down to the 5 items and focus on those 5 because they're the absolute bottom lines for our communities. We just don't know.
Yeah.
But we also know that ORC will have a response.
Yeah.
And that means we don't need to focus on some of those things that.
And as I said, we can be proactive and acting early when we do get the information on the 20th of December, hopefully. If we've got a bit more, then we can start having those discussions with those other people as well.
5 PM on Friday before Christmas, I'm sure everybody will be answering their phones.
But yeah, once we get a bit more information, we can take those opportunities where we can.
You want some surety around how much cost recovery is available if you did go guns blazing with getting consultants on board and then you end up 300K in the hole that you're not actually getting reimbursed for. So I guess that's something to consider as well.
Definitely.
I think we would be selective about the consultants. We use the money when we needed it, in one of the lost. But expertise we don't hold in-house.
Thank you. Recommendation on page 112 is that the report be received. Move on to second, please.
Aye.
And Neil, all in favour?
Yes.
Disembodied voice from beyond. Sound like a boomer.
Careful. I don't know what that means.
What?
Oh, you too old. Okay.
We are just going to skip ahead to item 24.11.11, which is the mayor's report. Our mayor needs to leave soon, so Tamer, the floor is yours.
That is very much appreciated. Yeah. What an excellent last 6 weeks or so in this role. Few highlights and important topics to share with you. So on the 6th of November, there was an all of CODC emergency management exercise held in the council chambers. It was centred on day 5 after a major event, and it was an excellent opportunity for our people to have practice of how everything will work in a major event, iron out some challenges and issues, and generally get a feeling for their individual roles. It was very well run and included multiple external agencies such as BENS, Police, St John, Aurora and Otago Regional Council, as well as some of Peter's old buddies from the Defence Force, which is cool. It is almost guaranteed that at some point in our lifetime this will be a reality. These exercises are great on the ground training and it was very well received. It was timely that when Minister Mark Mitchell presented to local government recently, he highlighted that as the Minister for Emergency Management for the past 12 months, he has been to 8 declared state of emergencies and highlighted that again on national radio earlier last week. And timely, given the presentation we've just had from Ian and Lee, there is gold in the hills and Santana Minerals intend to mine it. There is already a substantial amount of information out in the public space about this, and I encourage people across the district to access it. Santana Minerals have been running drop-in information sessions as well as putting information up on their website, and Sustainable Terrace have also been providing a substantial amount of information on their website. The application is currently in the government's fast-track process and there is limited opportunity for our communities to have their say, but ample opportunity to be informed. A couple of weeks ago, I attended the All of Local Government Conference in Wellington along with Councillor Patterson. And some highlights from the presentations included rates capping, which has significant fish hooks, according to New South Wales, which has been rates capping for 50 years. On a positive note, LGNZ advised there seems to be more willingness from central government to listen to alternative ideas coming out of local government. And the conversations around working together rather than against continue, which is promising. Minister Brown spoke about the water space and the very clear expectation that councils should be working together, and you will have seen that so far 4 councils have indicated that they will go to Morrison Low as a group together and ask for our numbers to be modelled. He also announced that all councils in New Zealand are invited to pitch for a regional deal. We are working on what that could look like currently with our neighbours, and central government's priorities for these regional deals will be economic growth, infrastructure development and housing, which are all quite important to us here in Cromwell, as well as the other wards. Some of our community boards have very big conversations coming this month about what level of service looks like. And I see this is the paper that you've got coming up next. And it's not quite as challenging for you potentially as some of the other wards because we're talking about council-owned buildings. We're juggling outrageous inflation of costs alongside the knowledge that there has been outrageous inflation in the past and likely will be again in the future. We also acknowledge that our ability to travel and to connect has moved on substantially since the days of horse and carts. The conversations are really difficult for some of these community boards, especially the ones who've got 5, 6, 7 halls and public facilities. Some of them get used twice a year, but some of them get used twice a week. And the big driver for this conversation at council level is the cost, substantial cost of earthquake strengthening, all of those. As we get into the festive season, I wish all of you in the Cromwell area, and especially the community board, a wonderful, safe and happy time with your friends and family. And thank you so much for your contribution, your role over the past year. The work that you do is not always valued or appreciated, but you're all here because you're passionate about your communities and want the best for people of today and for the generations to come tomorrow and beyond.
And lastly, I've set myself a personal challenge to buy all of my Christmas gifts this year in the Central Otago region. It's going pretty well so far, and I encourage you guys to do the same as well. Yeah, scapegoats. Yeah. Don't get any covered yet.
Really one of those gifts you can give to your children. My child, but yours?
I need to be selective about who gets gifts from certain areas, certain industries in our community. Thank you very much. That is my report.
Thank you. Taima, can I have a mover and a seconder for the news report? Ollie and Cheryl.
Yeah.
Oh, all in favour?
I
Thank you. And a very Merry Christmas to you. And yeah, there's some interesting things coming up. Certainly, as a community board, we might not be actively involved in the conversations about water and those sorts of entities, but we're certainly watching to see very closely what happens, how that plays out for us all. Righty-ho, then we go back some steps to page 116 and to the level of services for common facilities. That we missed.
Thank you, and just to follow on from that famous report there of this the conversations that the council's been having for a number of months now in different workshops in looking at levels of service, and often the costs are escalating just to maintain the current level of service. And partway through the conversation more recently were where are there opportunities to have a few cost savings and where we can look at reducing some costs. And so Janice and with the team have looked at a number of the council-owned buildings, which, as I'm sure you can appreciate, across the district were a lot of them built in First or Second World War. They are aging, they are taking a lot of money to maintain them. And with the gift that keeps giving as well, along with earthquake strengthening, and which buildings we earthquake strengthen and when do we do that strengthening. And so we've had a look at all the buildings across the district. We put a lens over it from an operational point of view, to look at, you know, how often are the halls, for argument's sake, booked, how often are they utilised, what is the level of revenue that we're getting in versus the rating costs that are associated with that, and what are those costs for earthquake strengthening. And as Martina said, there are in a couple of other boards, significant buildings that we have proposed for consideration of divestment. I guess that's the key when we're having these conversations, is that the staff we're putting this forward as a consideration to go into the consultation document. We're not saying get rid of them today, it's to have the conversation what that means in the context of everything else that's happening, basically. And for yourselves, the picture's a little bit different insofar as, you know, with the Cromwell Museum building and Tallis Hall. However, you know, when we initially looked at Tallis Hall, there was consideration from us to look at the potential divestment of that. However, looking at, you know, the frequency in which that hall is used, the revenue that's brought in, I guess the strategic asset that that building brings, particularly if there was a significant event in our district, then our recommendation is that to yourselves that it is retained and that the earthquake strengthening is undertaken. Well, we're happy to answer any questions.
So my question is, how come the bookings have gone up but the income's gone down?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So the bookings, they are reflected on what we've been told by the whole committee.
Yeah.
And the booking could be for 2 hours, it could be for 2 days.
Okay.
So what we know to be true is the income that we've received. I can tell you that when we're doing the fees and charges, which we'll be talking to council next week, halls that are being run by committee, their fees and charges will be getting put in the fees and charges document. So it gives some transparency and some clarity around expectations. And there have been discussions with the whole committee on charging and one thing and another.
And if I can add to that as well through the chair is often the community facilities that I've seen, the community utilise because they know where the key is. And often it is used regularly, but not necessarily formally from that point of view. And that doesn't help the situation. It's great that they're being utilised, but they need to be utilised in the right way so that when we're having these conversations, because some of the conversation is happening, or will be happening again later this week, whereby buildings have been utilised but uninformed, and so that hasn't helped the community themselves with the commentary that we're putting forward, because the building looks like it's underutilised when the community are actually saying, well, we use it regularly, not officially don't, and not through reports and make sure the revenue doesn't replicate.
They were obviously very good at charging in 22, 23. That's all freebies. Okay.
Can I just make an observation about the terrace hall, and we talk about the other halls that are close, and just whether it's relevant, but we probably should put it in there, is also that the Luggett Community Hall is actually only 26 k's or so. I know it's in QIDC, but there is another community hall there, and that's not something that would motivate me to say necessarily we shouldn't be doing what's recommended here, but just to have that in mind in case someone raises it.
Is communal shower facilities is an interesting thought. Additional function of the terrace hall.
Yeah. The title of this report is Level of Service Cromwell Buildings, but it only talks about the terrace hall and the Cromwell Museum building. So
those are the ones that we
it's the Cromwell buildings that are serving the public at the moment, I suppose. It's like the council owned Radiance Spa, and there's 2 buildings over there in the Montgrove, and then there's these buildings, which are, it's a different thing, but the content and the title didn't quite line up.
Yeah, street as well.
Yeah, and Alpha Street as well. Yeah, I mean, the Alpha Street Pavilion could have been in on it.
I think principally the discussion was always around community halls because of the earthquake stricken. So the focus was really around sports.
Mm.
Okay. Any further questions?
Have we had any gains on where the government's at with what earthquake strengthening is required and when?
Yes and no. And insofar as earlier in the year, the government indicated that they were going to review the legislation. They're still intending to do that. They gave an initial 4-year extension to the timeframes that are in existence right now. And they were meant to be confirming that before Christmas. That hasn't happened so far. Question mark of whether or not that will happen, with government then giving commitments to do a full review or start the full review of the legislation by mid next year. So that's all we know at the moment, unfortunately. So we're presenting this to you on the basis of the legislation that is today. That legislation may change next year. If it does, we'll have further conversations to the local stuff.
And further recommendations are on page 116. We've received the report and accept the level of significance, and B, recommend to council that the following buildings are retained as budgeted in the draft LTP 2534, and that is the Terrace Hall and Cromwell Museum building. Thank you. I saw nods there. I think that was Cheryl and Wally. And all in favour?
Aye. Aye.
Yeah.
Getting up in the air.
I need a hand. A candle, please. Bring us. Okay, so that not the regular. So you would say. And that takes us to page 122 and the full financial report for the period ending the 30th of September. Welcome forward.
Yeah, you might know, might not Donna. Donna sends her apologies. She had another matter she entered to attend, so I'll present the report. I will take the report as read. There are a couple of points that I'd like to bring to the board's attention. The first is the layout of the report. It's important to I think understand the full left-hand column is the annual plan as adopted by council. The column on the far right-hand side is the revised budget. Now we go through a process to update our budgets for things that may have been not included in the annual plan, carried over from work that was programmed in the annual plan that we had finance for, and we bring those things into the new annual plan. So we always compare our numbers to the revised budget, not the annual plan budget. And you'll see the first one there is land sale proceeds. There is no budget for that in the annual plan. However, there was some land sales that were programmed in, and they have got into the revised budget. So that is why you will see those variances like that. Anyway, just moving on, the revenue has a favourable variance of 750,000, and driving that is mainly internal interest revenue, user fees, and other reserve contribution and grants and subsidies. Now, internal interest revenue is driven by your surpluses in your reserves, which will be impacted by the Cromwell Memorial Hall project, and we will utilise the reserves before we start moving into an external debt situation. So, and grants and subsidies are received to date, that they're from the Central Lakes Trust for the Memorial Hall project. Now you can see that there's no budget there. That's a timing issue, so we would have timed the 2.5 million at a different stage to the 3 months that this report represents. Moving on to the expenditure side, and you don't often get to see this, but the overall expenditure is zero, variance is zero, which is unusual, more by good luck than management, but within the expenditure side, there are various things that make up that that bring it back to zero. Rates expense, cost of sales of land, which tie in with the revenue for land sales, and professional fees, grants, building repairs and maintenance, and staff costs. There is underspends in fuel and energy, other cost contracts, and internal interest expenses. Most of the variances are due to timing of the activities being carried out, and that's something that we're aiming to change for the long-term plan. When we budget in the past, we've taken the budget and divided by 12. Now that's not how expenditure happens. There is a pattern to it, and we want to try and capture that pattern so that we can provide more meaningful updates to the board, and try and match the budget to the expenditure, so that we can remove this is a timing issue, and we can get to the nub of what is causing variances. Rates expense is unfavourable and will remain that way for the rest of the year, with the ORC rates still to be recognised against the budget. Some of the rates expense will be offset in rental and hires, once we pass those on, where investment properties pay the rates. So moving on to the capital expenditure page, which is on 125. Again, this follows the same format. And you can see the use of the revised budget. It's early stages. This is only for the first quarter, so projects are at different stages. Hence why there's not a lot of expenditure in terms of the parks and reserve space. And that will continue as the projects advance through their program, that the money will be spent. The major project, which is on the next page, which is the Cromwell Memorial Hall, that's in a similar situation. We've spent $3.3 million against the revised budget of 12.79. The expectation obviously is that we will be spending that. The spend will start to ramp up as we go through the financial year, so we would expect that 24 million to be spent by the end of June. The reserves balances on the next page, page 128. Unfortunately, due to the delays we had in signing off the annual report, has led to two things. Firstly, these numbers are unaudited, And secondly, their 30 June 2024 numbers, because the team were involved in the large amount of work to get the annual report over the line on the 27th of November. So we've just effectively finished that. And what we're looking at doing is providing, outside of the reporting cycle, the updated reserve balance numbers to the various community boards, because we've got the same issue for all of the community boards. Now, there may be a question around the fact that we're looking at 24.7 million for the Cromwell Memorial Hall. That is made up of $18 million from reserves and a further 6.7 million from land sales. So that's effectively the 24 million. There's another 2.5 million from external grants, which you saw on the first page. So given that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions?
For Neil.
I'm waiting for Neil too. You there, Neil?
Neil?
Yeah, yeah. What are you waiting for me for?
Because you always have questions of the financial report.
Well, the question I had has been answered.
There you go.
And you don't know.
No, I was interested in the financial reporting for the reserves, but I understand the reason for that, so I'm happy.
Just got one very, very quick question. Going back to the Cromwell Cemetery, it says plans are being prepared for kiosk extension and additional beams.
Beams, labour strips of concrete that headstones go on?
Yes.
Berms. Beams, yeah, beams, yeah.
Yeah, well, now we know what beams are. And so the beam. Okay, or birds, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There is one thing that I have talked to other community boards about, which I think is important to bring up in terms of with the districtisation process that's dealt with the rating side of it. We're now working through the reserve side of it and what happens to the reserves in terms of reserves that we can to apply targeted rates for specific reasons. They should stay for those reasons, and we've got to work through how that will work out over the next wee while through the long-term planning process, so that we're not getting reserves being used that were collected in Cromwell, for argument's sake, being used in the Manitoba. So we're working through how that might look as well. So
Great, thank you so much. And the recommendation on page 122 is that the report be received. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Cheryl. Sarah, all in favour, including the disembodied voice. Carried.
Aye.
Okay, that takes you to my report. I'll keep it very brief. I attended a meeting with some members of the terrace community on the 2nd of December to hear the Sustainable Terrace, that group give us an update into where their thinking is and the work that they're doing about the impacts of the Santana mine and fast track process. Neil, Peter and Tamer attended with me, and Tamer's already given you a little bit of an update there. I think that given what we've heard again about the fast track process and the length of time that we will have to pull anything together and what's really important to that local community, what they're looking for from us as a group and our influence with council, is to be able to make sure that the voice of the terrace community is heard in whatever we put forward. So they're quite keen to make sure that we've got the information, you know, that they are sharing the information that they're gathering. They've been quite present in Santana's public workshops, and they are doing a lot of work in the background where they're looking at other mining situations and seeing the sorts of impacts that have been around the local communities there. Their concerns are around environmental impacts and whether or not the sorts of mitigations that are put in place will be secure in a very long-term way in an earthquake-prone district, and also what the impacts on water and power will be, and on the impacts on them as a community in terms of noise and changes to visual landscape. So they've got some real concerns there that they will keep us in the loop about what they are, and are really keen to make sure that their voice is heard. The other thing I've attended that was on Friday at the AGM and end of year function for the Central Otago Principals Association, at which I'm the secretary. We farewelled Wendy Bamford, who is currently principal at Wanaka Primary School, who has been previous principal at Clyde and was also a teacher at Cromwell Primary School, from an education career spanning 50 years, 20 years as principal at Wanaka. So quite an incredible.
She actually retired.
She is retiring at the end of this year. She has got, there's like 50 million now functions to say farewell to Wendy, but she is a fairly formidable force in education who's been highly involved across the Central Otago Principals Association, New Zealand Education Institute, and lots of other areas of education. She's a Bannockburn resident, and so a long-term resident in Bannockburn. So there's talk about her becoming a school grandma. I have reminded her that my school's probably the closest for her to travel to for school grandmaing, but you know, that's completely up to her. But a formidable lady who's given a lot to education and will be missed from that role. That's my report. I'm happy to move it. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Bob. All in favour? And that's the members' reports, and we're going to go this direction. Oh, we'll start with Neil online. What's the God? Neil, you're up first.
Excellent. I might steal a whole lot of thunder from Cheryl from the council meeting in Sarah. I'll leave the infrastructure out. So council meeting on the 27th of November, and it was good to get an update from Norm Daly, the Teviot Valley Community Board Chair, and the fact that they have, with the vacancy they had down there, they appointed Curtis Pannett to their board to replace Russell Reid. And that basically halved the, or certainly brought down the average age of the people on there. Also, the Teviot Valley Spatial Plan was adopted, which was good. Next to move on to Maniatoto. Maniatoto Stadium funding for upgrades was approved approved for LTP submission going forward, which is good to see that moving forward. Grants policy was adopted and reviewed to align with the long-term plan work. A few bridge postings have been noted around the district as the review of the bridge weight limits have been carried out. Long discussion about emergency works funding from the October 24 weather event, which we're funding through a deficit from the rating reserves account that will hopefully build back up eventually or get rid of the deficit. I'll leave to Cheryl to talk about the waters, and we're going to talk about the Memorial Hall shortly. We revised the community outcomes for Central Otago, and most importantly, we adopted the financial year 24 annual report for the council. And also there was a paper on the Bannockburn Industrial Subdivision. And otherwise, I had a hearings panel meeting on the 12th of November, and we had applications there that were decisions aren't out as yet, so nothing of in particular around Cromwell, and we've got another hearings panel tomorrow as well, so nothing particularly from there as well. And also went with Anna to the meeting with the people from Terrace, which was a good chance to hear some of those views and to hear firsthand just how the fast track legislation is going to disempower communities that otherwise would get a chance through a submission process to be part of a resource consent process, and how that's going to be very difficult for the communities to accept and be part of, and certainly will increase I think the expectation for council to become an advocate on behalf of the community, which will be difficult given the timeframes that we've got. Otherwise, not a lot else to report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Wally, you're next.
Okay, so not a lot to report. I've been to 4 Christmas parties and 2 fishing comps since the last meeting. Had 1 office opening function, Patterson's in the mall, It was lovely. And trying to keep my vehicle fleet on the road seems to have taken up a few weekends. So that's me. Not a whole lot of public attraction.
Thanks, Bonnie. Cheryl?
Attended the LTP workshop on November 14th. On the 18th, into the old Cromwell Community Board, where they had a large piece of the post office sign had come down. Luckily, nobody was underneath it. So that obviously had to be replaced, which happened. It's a brand new sign and it's looking really good. But yes, that would have been, they found that they were not attached, they were just sort of glued. It was an accident waiting to happen. So anyway, that's all been remedied now and looks good. And I also attended the council meeting on the 27th. And with regard to the list, where there was an update on the compliance status, which is we're doing relatively well. It's a good story. We're compliant. No more abatement of the there. The compromise in May, as the metal is complete now, you would have seen all the pipes and it relatively smoothly. I think that the community were probably fairly happy that they did not get too many disruptions and all went relatively smoothly. And he also got an update on the local water done well. And I don't know, Peter, if you want to add anything to what's happening in that space. With regard to what our intentions, the council has basically sort of taken the next step to actually investigate, as and we've spoken before about, investigate what a regional CCO would look like. We are obligated to do a comparison with standalone, and we're also going to look at a single CCO and then do the comparison with what a regional CCO would look like. So we've got some other councils that are neighbouring councils that are interested in taking that next step to just see what it looks like. There's no obligation at this stage, it's just look. So there's a long way to go there, but limited time. Anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. We'll find out on Friday confirmation at the mayoral forum. Those councillors who are keen to work together in the new year and explore the CCO, concrete council CCO option. But we know that not everyone's interested in this region or in South and Leith.
Yeah. And then yesterday I attended the Christmas council Christmas lunch, which was lovely at the Orchard Gardens in Alexandra. I unfortunately missed the Cromwell Community House. They have a pensioners Christmas party. Yeah, it got postponed because the manager got COVID, so that put it onto a day that I was unable to attend. But it's really good. They thoroughly enjoy it. The fine time singers are there and lovely food. And it had a beautiful, it was a really hot sunny day, so it would have been great. So yes, so that's my report.
Thank you, Cheryl.
I don't have an awful lot to report. Probably most of you will realise that the last 7 weeks, I think I've spent three weeks of that in Dunedin Hospital, and it's actually brought home to me how vital that hospital is to this district generally. Place is a shambles, an absolute shambles. And while I wouldn't want to criticise any of the staff because they all do a magnificent job, the administration in place, the building itself is just an absolute mess. And I think it's incumbent on us as residents of Central Otago to campaign to build that hospital down there to the original plan, and also to push like crazy for a regional hospital in Central Otago. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Sarah, lucky last.
Well, I've done all of the important and council-y things that everybody else has already talked about, and then I've been to lots of Christmas parties and kids' sports stuff otherwise. Started with a hiss and a roar, actually, look at the calendar. The 6th of November, day after the last meeting, I attended the simulation day here in Cromwell with the community response group we had time. So I sat around the table and watched everybody. Watched David up on the big screen, giving us orders from Alex. Thankfully, the link was intermittent. Really interesting to be part of, though. And like Hannah said, I think it's when, not if, isn't it? So very interested to be part of that. Very thankful to have been included in that and learned a lot. 7th of November, we had the sports fields and recreation strategy workshop there that most of us were at. Again, very interesting to see old and new Cromwell come together and how we see our town progressing and what we need and what we have and how well that's done from different areas. I think it was really valuable exercise to do that and bring those people. They might never end up on the same page, but they at least know what book we're reading now. So that's a good start. I think there's a good way of putting it. Yeah, there's a lot of work to do. I think it's really positive because who knows what direction is the best direction at the stage. So things like that are really useful. But yeah, positive work, good. And we've got a really good, solid, positive community of volunteers here that just want to see the best. I think that was the underlying message from that, apart from some groups not liking each other as much as we thought they might. On the 9th of November, I drove out of Cromwell because we don't have an athletics track here until we get this strategy moved. And went to Molyneux Park where Alexandra Athletics Club put on a country meet. We had kids come in to compete as far as Timaru, Oamaru, Dunedin, and said it's the best grass track they've competed on. It was an awesome day. Molyneux Park, certainly the outside, inside's a bit chilly, but outside, amazing facility, and it was commended by all that attended. So great day there. I'm very proud to be from Central for that. And then on the 12th of November, Dunstan's own triathlon was held here in Anderson Park. And apart from the grass being a bit long for the bikers, they're a bit tired. This is the next time when we get a grade 2. 2 laps is really hard. But awesome to see how cool the town looks when it's all busy and those kids. Great facility, great day out, and our school did pretty well as well. So I'm quite pleased to have been there as a parent help. After that, it really just turned into Christmas parties and sociable catch-ups and a few calls from members of the community to express pleasure or otherwise at certain things we are or are not doing. Quite good to hear from them.
Always good to hear from our community.
Yeah. And we encourage it, so good to be there for the feedback. Yeah.
Thank you. Can I have a moment of second for members' reports, please? Thanks, Cheryl. Thank Bob. All in favour?
Aye.
This body head is waning.
Reminded not to go to an altar.
Oh.
Barely moved my head then.
Righty ho, that takes us to page 131 and the governance reports. Yep. Okay. So we're going to board and 41st update on the Cromwell Racecourse Reserve. Old team.
Paula.
Paula.
Yeah, I'm just here. That's yeah.
Straight to that point.
But to Sarah's point, thanks for shout out to everybody who's been involved in creating this plan. It's together, and I think started a conversation that has been going on for a little while as well. Yeah, but to get sort of something down and out. So this is really to, I guess, start socialising, getting feedback, and get some as well. But we'll lead you through it. Yeah, thanks. Yes, it is online. Andrea.
Yep.
Afternoon, all. Yes. Yeah, just in case we get stuck, it should be right, and to hear some feedback as well. So, bringing through these would be great. So, I think we know the purpose of the plan, but it was to meet the demands of the growing need for sports in the area, and it was mainly to investigate whether the racecourse had room for
expanding some of those needs into inside. And as part of that, we needed to understand some of the stakeholders, what they needed. So we were there for that, which was great. And then we need to develop a plan and for the 20-year period and enable some funding through the LTP. Sarah, let's get to the next one would be good. Keep going. So, and we know population and expected growth was on the dotted line. Up above that, so I guess things are pressing in the sports space over time that we need to be able to have somewhere really to use. Thanks, Sarah. The next one is, so we came to you with the sports field demand, I think really this year, late last year, a little while ago. And I guess currently we have the equivalent of 4 full-size sports grounds, 2 in Anderson Park and 2 down at Alpha Street. So in the medium term, which we've termed 5 years, we'll need 8. So that's 4 extra. And then in the 20-year period, we're likely to need 12, so that's 8 extra. And that's just for, we've sort of put rugby and football there, but there's more or less open space sport. We're just using those as examples because we know those fields, what we needed for those sports. So there could be other things come along, especially in the 20-year space that might be different to what our traditional sports are. So we also want this field how the equestrian club, who had mostly exclusive use of the 92 hectares out of the racecourse, how they use it, what they need. So we know they need water for irrigation, and I think they've come here last time, so we were pleased to know that they have got some, which they are progressing through themselves, and the water is just behind their sort of the building, just near their building. They also wanted water so they could irrigate some of their activities, like the race course itself, places where they do horse paddocks for grazing and other places, and also so they can establish more shade trees. And clearly they think there's a need for additional toilets. Clearly there would be if we need if we go there for sports. And their future aspirations are basically water, some renovations of current facilities, that might be the removal of some as well. And they're keen to re-establish an all-weather equestrian arena, and also investigate potential for a multi-purpose covered arena, which is a longer term plan. And next one, thanks, Sarah. So they are the groups, along with many of you here, that turned up on the night, so that was great. And so Sarah's outlines how the meeting went, so I have to go over that. I guess the key finding for the next slide from the meeting, whether you agree or not, what we took away from this. Clearly the racecourse does have capacity for sports and equestrian, so that was the best finding, I think. I'm not sure where we would go if we found out there wasn't. We'd have to be looking for a bit more ground somewhere. But we also would like to use utilise Anderson Park and Alpha Street. I guess look at them, and I'll show you some pictures shortly. Look at using that space in a bit more detail for a bit longer, and looking at, and we found out that coming off Rivendale Road was the best option for having sport, and you'll see that when we realign the sports fields. And that, interestingly enough, that the equestrian cross country, which uses a vast area in the racecourse, could be squeezed up. And we showed this while we're looking at that. And what else is on there? Yeah, just getting around the place, in a coherent way, so it all sort of flowed. And we would go for a future expansion, indoor sports facility or something, or help like that. So we put those on pretty pictures. So we go to the next slide. So as a baseline assumption, I guess, to utilise the existing Alpha Street and Anderson Park first with the overflow going over to the race course. There's a consideration, and I'll show you that shortly too, that we would formalise utilising the college ground. He said we don't have any agreement with them. We have to touch base with them whether they think that's a good idea or whether the board thinks that's a good idea either. And as I said earlier, we've amended the or aligned medium and long term to those supply and demand report for sports fields that we had reported to the board last year, and that we need the 4 pitches for the 5-year period and 8 in the 20-year period. And where a regional facility can be accommodated, and we're looking for that on the, with 8 pitches. And regionally, we're talking. We had Queenstown Lake representative at that meeting, and he's on our steering group as well, Simon Bantry. So Queenstown, in particular in Wanaka, are looking at expanding a similar, their old sewage ponds in Wanaka actually to a similar fashion to this. So we don't want to be having the same 2 councils in 20 minutes, same stuff. So we're looking at who's going to be doing what, and we're thinking that this race course would be the sort of regional area for football potentially, and that would leave Wanaka or Queenstown to of something else, or at least they have enough land to start with. But so it makes sense to be talking to our neighbours, and a lot of sense doing this so that we're not all doing the same thing and spending money. We go and travel around playing team sports as they do anyway.
And the idea of the regional hub is it's for the club level activity. So each Queenstown would hold on to this community ground, and Cromwell would have Anderson Parks and up the street. This is for when you've got tournaments, we've got that Saturday morning with a lot of quantity, and they can come to one place and play together.
And there's ways, but there's investment for us users to extend the use of our existing pitches, like for grass, the sand covered grass, or artificial turfs, or embedded turf like forest grass and things like that. So it costs money as well. So we move on to the base option, which is Elder Street. So essentially, it's this, it's got 2 pictures, 2 adult pictures when you look at it, and that's the status quo. So that would remain, and then we go to the next base option for Anderson Park. So we've moved. There's a hockey. There was an intention, some might recall, when the hockey was built, that they want a second hockey turf at the side of that at some point. So we've allowed for that, and whether that's, we've shown a half turf, and the hockey have told us that's what their aspirations still are. Just leave that like that. We've reorientated the rugby and cricket a little bit, because the cricket people have told us that they don't like the rugby being played on this cricket pitch over the long term, that sort of stuff. So we've tried to push that along a little bit. It's still got the status quo there with a bit of a rejig, make it play, make it use better usability. And in case you're going to ask, we did look at turning them around. So they faced east-west. It doesn't work if you need to cut a significant amount into that bank on that side. So you're going to have a big wall sort of just past the ball line, which is probably not ideal. So we're going to look at those options. Thanks, Sarah. And the race course option is, there's 2 options, A and B. So we're looking at option A as a long term. So we're using college grounds. It has 2 pitches and 2 pitches at the race course. I'll show you this. And then long term is college grounds, 6 pitches. And then it's the option B is everything started at the race course and not at the college. That's there. This is I'm going to show you, and then there's the
potentially on the college, oops, go back. For the college, is yeah, let's check.
Let's go.
We could have football, rugby, cricket, so the artificial wicket there and potentially that there.
I don't want anybody playing rugby on my aesthetic track like.
Yeah, and it might not work, so that's an option to say.
And that's on school grounds, that's another issue go to school.
That's what, is that where it is at the moment, or is that track moved over? Close to that route.
Can you remind me, yeah, does that move, the track moved over a little bit?
It's not far off, is it?
It's pretty close to where it is. I mean, it might be shifted a little bit sort of westward slightly, but
We're
it's
just
pretty
looking at
close.
putting in some throwing cages and nets and stuff that are on that right hand side of the track. So,
Yes.
but it's still a bit up there.
We can make some details. So that's an option, and then if you just go to the next one, thanks, Sarah. That's that one, and then the two pictures that we still need to show them over here with the race course. Back one. Yeah, so it's a realignment of the entrance coming up here, and then there's event space, and there's the racing events where they have the corporates things there as well. Multi-use cross country where it is. Podium paddocks still where they are, and development of the centre of the for community events and festive events as well. And that could be community events, could be anything, concerts or big camp event, park over things like that have there, that they have there. And then there's car parking and some toilets. So that's the option A. So that was the college, and then two on here. Option B, long-term college to.
Want me to? That's don't get ahead to the exciting one at the end.
Exciting. Yeah, so option is that this one here. With six there, so that's long-term option A. And then you'll see that we've allowed a bit of a space here for potential hobbies.
How big's that? That was all that big for indoor. The arena's obviously horse arena.
Horse arena.
Yeah, and it's not.
Indoor.
It's just.
Four courts. I think there's 4 courts here, I think.
Yeah, it was something that came up in the engagement with stakeholders was the need for indoor courts, netball, volleyball, what have you, and I guess what we've suggested here is this is the potential location if that were to be on the racecourse reserve. So there's still a bit of, I guess, water to go under the bridge in terms of its ideal location in the future. So it's a long-term aspiration.
But that's a forecourt facility with.
Yep.
Yeah, that's scale to be. Yeah, cool.
So we're talking about potential need as opposed to need.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and just showing that this room, it could be 30, 40 years away, I don't know, but could be 10, but yeah, and there's parking on both sides of the road, and then additional parking for the use of that potential sport facility indoor one.
And if you look at the size of the equestrian administration building, you can kind of get the relativity of scale. And also, when we're talking about club room facilities, or where that would be, where the car parking is close to it, where the walking distance to the fields, and still that separation of those different activities on the reserve.
But if you're going to look at the indoor forecourts as the minimum, I know Simon was saying that's their study at the moment. They're looking at.
Yeah, I feel it's going to build.
Yeah, the minimum would be 4, but assuming that means that space, you could potentially extend that to 6. But you've got that capacity there. That's good. That's.
I'd say that we do need to think about the district as one not park.
Yeah. Well, it does tick boxes for them though. Putting something in between Queenstown and Monaco. I mean, their debate's the same as Hugh and Alex, isn't it? Where do you go? Which one do you go to? For them.
Yeah.
And Simon was quite frank. He's put the money in the middle, and neither get their own, but they're happy and they put money into it. Good option to consider.
So we're into option B, which is the race course. So that's a sort of spot the difference. So you'll see the cross option B is 4 fields. Yeah, but it's either and
move on.
Cross country stays the same, so getting links. So not much difference in the long term though, going to this fund.
Sorry, I'm having to smash the PowerPoint. I'm not trying to.
Fastest finger. Look at you, your trigger finger.
So that's fully laid out, I guess, I think fourth one, sorry. Yeah, it's fully laid out and between long term.
So we lose some pony paddocks out of that one, do we?
Some pony paddocks. That's right, but they come here, they don't use all their pony paddocks.
Yeah, I know. Most of it's just the so interesting.
Water. Because it's so it's an equal swap, so there's no change. Yeah, so that's looking, yeah, it's the same, just different layout really.
So the other elements that we talked about at the stakeholder discussion night was other things that could actually be used for allowed for within that reserve. And so things that come up, we know that there's a conversation, a loose conversation around a health facility. It's just making sure, and I guess the campground's been discussed. We talked already about the indoor sports centre, and equestrian group would like it, potentially would like an indoor ring. So we're making sure that there is spaces, flexible spaces left on that reserve area where they could be developed, and also, and that's one of the reasons why those sports fields have stayed on that one side, on that right-hand side, so any planned developments, a lot, you know, they're not compromised for future developments and improvements for change. So just trying to keep a little bit of flexi space around, depending if demand, heavy demand, ebbs and flows, that we've got those opportunities to have forward potentially for those that could use and you'll notice in this conversation currently that airfield is out of scope on this conversation.
Where was the helipad's all part of the airfield, isn't it? But is there any ramifications with that? The helipad. Well, yeah, it's ideal for Great Leg Play Rugby. You just chuck them. No, it's okay. Is there any like exclusions over like that's all good? But seeing as we heard some that earlier, so I'm forward.
Yeah. I think it's out of night that the planes don't seem to worry each other.
Yeah. As this is rabbits, but making the planes up, right? Digging holes.
Oh, yeah.
So, and we need to point out that those additional potential uses are really long term. So however, the health facility focus that would need a whole change in the current recreation reserve status with government, and so this isn't something that could happen in the next year. It's just making sure that we haven't shot ourselves in the foot too soon, and we can take this change that.
Yes, I think there's a space there for a number of things, and the key focus of the reserve at the moment is sports and equestrian, and there's plenty of space for that. Potentially, in the longer term, the space for other things if community is willing to investigate how they might happen.
Some of the discussions that we had the other night were around car parking, making sure there's enough spaces for car parking, and currently with the race day, people park on the grass, but formalising those car parking spaces. And there's also discussed about having an underpass for bikes to go through, but it was also acknowledged that for young kids, it's a long way to go. I mean, that's an opposite.
Depends where they're coming from.
That's
Could be really hard.
Yeah, up the street from this corner of town.
It's great.
Anyway, if you're coming back away and drive down to Alpha Street, that
And it's downhill on the way home.
nice to back away and drive to the race. Tires. Yeah.
And there is an underpass coming as part of Shannon Farms development.
Yeah, make this more accessible, this reserve for.
Yeah, our kids are still going to die.
No, they're not.
It's just going.
So dangerous.
I'm happy to have this. It's stuff on box.
We want to include a little step in here. So we've talked, obviously, we today the board on what we took out of that the other night, and we're really keen to hear your feedback if there's things that you observed or heard or thoughts that you've had that you'd like to include, because this is a chance and we really want to make sure we get everything in the mix while it's still on this draft stage. We also want to go back to the people who attended the meetings, stakeholder groups, and make sure that what we picked up, have we heard it right? Did we miss anything? And then the other thing we need to do is share this with our
wider community because they haven't had a look at it yet. So Gordy and I are talking about how we can maybe just do some informal sort of drop-in sessions, put some maps up in public places, and we would like to be able to talk through how we got to this stage so people can understand the thinking, because they're going to go, oh, it's not what I was thinking in my head. So we want to be able to explain things through, but that's something we can do sort of in the next month or so. Bearing in mind it's coming into Christmas. So just to explain how we got here, and also to make sure what have we missed to catch any bits that we haven't picked up. Then once that all comes in, plans get revised and refined, and then Jazz makes sure a lot of them in. So that December 24, probably that won't be a realistic timeframe because we want to make sure we have that community conversation before the plans get locked in. So that'll be a slow idea. And then once Jazz locks that in, that then goes into that drought management plan, and that will then go out for the community to consult with. Yeah. There's one more option. Yeah, so
Any feedback? Oh, that's what I want to say, yeah.
that's around the school grounds. Yeah.
Oh, you've done it, yes.
But depends on how I think.
Yeah, that's the next step of the last part. So any feedback, are we on the right track for what they end up heard, or are we way off target?
The one thing I'd say that came up there, and I didn't realise until we got to the meeting, was that netball and indoor courts and courts weren't included, and it was a little bit jarring to hear it say to the netball representatives that turned up, oh, you're fine. There's 2 netball courts that are ours. I am privy to, but not part of, the committee that spend a hell of a lot of time negotiating with the college to use. They have up to, I think, 10 courts on the go for kids, and we had little 5-year-olds practice on a piece of concrete that sloped outside the gym at the college because there wasn't even a court free. So the need is 5 years ago. The club's got 120 kids in it, I think, and it's growing every year. Those 2 courts are hugely insufficient, even more so probably than any of the other sports like football, soccer, rugby, anything like that, hockey.
I think that one of the sort of issues you have there is that primary school netball is a club.
It's club and college.
And then college managed.
But college do their own thing and they play their own, but the junior alone has got 120 kids in that year 1 to 6.
So
They use everything, which then restricts the college to when they can practice. So the college are good to us at the moment and let them use it, but then it means they can't. And the bigger the club goes, the more they're asking and the less they're given. And the fact that the competition's played in Alex is great for that local competition, but the seniors actually all go and play in one called Queenstown in the evening. So there's no senior netball here at all anymore. And they don't play in Alex because it's
still has to stay in Mornington. They do play in one.
Yeah, they're more recreational level, but that serious stuff is important.
games. Yes.
Yeah, cool. And I said basketball is obviously picking up. The prediction is that basketball will be the sport that overtakes netball because netball is such a small sport worldwide. So anything we do in basketball court size and being is slightly bigger. So make sure that those courts are basketball size rather than netball court size for, you know, when you've got your 4 together, those run off. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Just a future proofing.
Can I just ask, given that the usage of those courts is school?
It's club based for the juniors, year 1 to 6.
And it's for practices, isn't it? Because they play.
Yeah, because they play in the house. Unless there's a Cromwell game, which they have because it's an overflow for Alex. They do occasionally play Cromwell here to take pressure off.
Wise, is there any reports that the racecourse reserve is a better place, or is it better to have it?
I don't know if you've got space for it around there with the college. There's a lot of building work happening at the college at the moment. When you start talking to the college, you need to be actually really sure that the amount of field space that they've currently got is the amount of field space they'll have in this building are going up.
Threat, you'd probably, funny enough, I've done a little pen and paper exercise on that. You'd probably comfortably, you could fit 3, or I'd push you could fit 3, but I don't think, if you're looking at it, I think you should probably look at 4 courts. And if that's the case, then barrier doesn't really work that well. It's a bit of a pinch. So if you're going to do it, let's do it properly and go for 4 with the potential to be 6 rather than 2, maybe 3, and it's squeezy. Okay. Do it the right way.
Just the other thing on the college, we have, there's potential for have unofficial board that bringing that
Oh, yeah.
sport, general sports court. Yeah, I'm not sure where.
I suppose it'd be great to have a look at the netball courts and the tennis courts and see if you can't do something, because everywhere else,
We might need to keep on moving on, otherwise we're not going to get out of here tonight.
Feel free to email anything through.
Yeah.
Did you know something about whether a concept's been done about lining a rugby field up with the terrace? It's
At the moment, you're saying it doesn't align.
no,
It's not.
no, it could be put parallel with the bottom of the terrace, and the terrace can be used as a central grandstand. Just depending, like, we need to think bigger than working around current things like the cricket nets, for example. You know, if they need to be shifted, so be it. We're pretty good, you know.
Yeah, then we show the picture. Okay, thanks.
Well, thank you, we'll look at that.
Thank you, team.
Thank you.
That takes us to our status reports. Was there anything that needs clarifying on those?
Can I just clarify if those reports for the Memorial Hall September, like the Rising Main and Water Treatment ones are, because it doesn't, I can't see a date on them.
Just saying, point 10 on construction financials are in progress for October and November.
What's that, Sarah? Sorry, didn't catch.
Point 10 says in progress for October and November. So are they written?
So that's been done, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Is it?
Is everyone comfortable with
The
how?
way how that sits though, with looking where we're at in the budget is to September 2024. I would say it's September.
I will too, and on that basis, I'm going, it's December.
Yeah, we should have an update. We should have an October and a.
I'm sure other things have got
At
right,
least
but
have
actually it's the timeliness is sort of going, well, it's changed so much that I was wait till we get something up to date and then can ask some real meaningful questions.
I think we've got the right people in the room for any meaningful questions today. I'm sorry, Neil. Yeah.
Similar with the Cromwell Rising Main, how comfortable people are with the fact that it went over budget. And I don't know, whatever caused that, just making sure it's not going to happen again within reason. I'm not sure some of the unforeseen issues were really that unforeseen.
For what it's worth, I think, Wally, the key thing there is that the original budget and the revised budget, I'm pretty sure the revised budget was known and understood before the works commenced, so it wasn't as though that the works went over budget after they started. It was the timing between what you put in the LTP and what the project turns out to be. So the key thing there is to look at the revised budget, which I'm pretty sure was what was based on the construction tender being let, and the actual is the more relevant one in that case, just with timing, I think.
Okay, we're comfortable with me going back to the recommendations, or is there further discussion? Right. Recommending that the status reports be received.
Aye.
You only have to twitch ever so slightly and you're it. Okay. The date of the next meeting is Monday, the 10th of February, although we are aware that there will be a single item extraordinary
in January.
Could be ordinary.
Or ordinary. So January the.
Well, it's what today suits. It makes it happen.
Can say Tuesday the 14th at 6 of the time or 2 o'clock.
Yep, do it.
Tuesday the 14th.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I'll take it off one of my ELT colleagues as to who is liaising with this group. I do wonder if it's David's area to get that further information.
David, is this you? Going back to Chelsea?
Yes.
Thank you.
14th, so we'll need that information for a meeting on the 14th of January.
So we would like it on New Year's Day.
Is it going to be a daytime meeting or an afternoon, or what are you planning?
Time,
14th, 2 p.m.
14th, 2 p.m. Teams.
With rooms.
Okay.
7th of January, we'll need that information.
Our children.
That's right.
It'll be one character.
Hopefully it's a 10-minute query.
Yeah. I think that's,
Yeah.
yeah. Get that clarity.
She's very clever, so.
Oh, yeah, Teams for that, actually. If it's
Righty ho, so that takes us to page 144 in the resolution to exclude the public.
Okay,
Thank you, seconder.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cheryl. All in favour?
Aye.
Lovely. And on to our confidential session, once we've got off the public meeting.
Madam Chair,
with
going to leave the meeting.